Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The date is February 22nd, 2022. The time is 7:03 p.m. I call to order a meeting of the Havre Mayor and City Council. Just give me 1 second while I call the roll. There it is. Council President Glenn.
Here.
Councilmember Robertson.
Here.
Councilmember Zinner.
Here.
Councilmember Boyer.
Here.
Councilmember Ringstocker.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
All council members are present and accounted for. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance and opening prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to call forward Reverend Gene Proud of the Proud Evangelistic Association. Welcome.
Let's pray. Father, there's a lot of business tonight. This needs a lot of wisdom and a lot of knowledge, and you've got all of it. So just please be gracious and pour it out like you're pouring the rain, so that everything that will be done will be for your honor and glory and for our benefit and safety. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Reverend Proud, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. After the roll call, I meant to do a public hearing on Ordinance 1065, and I rolled right into the Pledge of Allegiance. So now we got the Pledge of Allegiance done and the opening prayer, so we can do the public hearing for Ordinance 1065. Ordinance 1065 is concerning repealing and amending Chapter 177, Article 5, tax credits for qualifying first responders. It's an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Havre Grace adopted pursuant to the authority of the Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and Sections 33 and 34 of the Havre Grace City Charter for the purpose of repealing and amending City Code Chapter 177, Article 5, taxation. At this time, I'd like to call if anyone in the audience is here to speak on Ordinance 1065 for a public hearing. Sir.
Hello. Chief Scott Hirsch, 720 Teal Court, Havity, Grace, Maryland. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I come to you once again this evening to speak in reference to the ordinance for an enhanced property tax credit for first responders. In a time when volunteerism is declining in the fire and EMS service both nationally and locally, the Susquehanna Host Company is always in ways to search new, improved ways to recruit and retain members. The current property tax credit is a very good recruitment and retention tool, and one that we always mention in our recruitment and retention efforts. Our mission remains to continue to put fire apparatus on the street with highly trained officers and firefighters, as well as ensure that apparatus is properly staffed for quick response. As of today's date, the Susquehanna Host Company has had a 9% increase in calls for the first 2 months of 2022. This will put Susquehanna Host Company at record levels this year, not to mention the future increase of calls we'll see with building construction within city limits associated with calls from construction to include auto accidents. We'll also see an increase of calls for failing fire and EMS system within Harford County, which is twofold, to include A, more mutual aid and response calls covered by the Susquehanna Hose Company, and B, the need for the Susquehanna Hose Company to keep the standard we have with membership and staffing due to lack of mutual aid. So therefore, we need to depend on ourselves more with staffing because we have less helping us out. Unfortunately, when a city builds out and expands boundaries with annexation, there's costs sometimes unnoticed. Most of the times these costs are for first responders, especially volunteer first responders. We all know things like police protection, DPW, tourism, and such will need increased funds for the future growth. However, with volunteer fire, rescue, and EMS, those costs not only come with financial support, but also financial support for the volunteers. Financial support for operations. As we all know, the city is great at both, especially the operational financial support. What I don't want to see happen is for citizens to be confused between the two. Obviously, there are times the Susquehanna Host Company asks the city for operational financial support due to the growth of Havity Grace. But this enhanced property tax credit request is something that is different to me. We also need volunteers to staff the apparatus for the increase of calls. I joined the Susquehanna Hose Company 31 years ago, and that was the first year we ever hit 300 calls in 91. In 2022, we're going to easily hit over 800. That's a 175% increase in calls over 31 years. There's no doubt this increase in calls is from annexation from developments like Bully Rock, Grace Harbor, Bayview Estates, and many others. With the building that is planned, it's safe to say this increase in fire and EMS calls will continue at this pace. So I ask that everyone keeps in mind the Susquehanna Hose Company needs both increased operational financial support and financial support for our recruitment and retention program to maintain our high level of service for a growing and expanding Havre Grace. I'd like to thank Mayor Moulton, Councilwoman Boyer, and her committee for coming up with a very fair, cost-effective legislation that's favorable to both the city and the Susquehanna Hose Company. I'm available to answer any questions if anybody has any specifics.
Council, any questions for Chief Hurst? Councilmember Boyer?
So your membership, I'm assuming that they're all in favor of it. Have you noticed any positives happening in the past couple of weeks?
Me and the president have both noticed, particularly some of our older membership, getting back active on the fire trucks to meet the quota. Back in, I guess, mid-January, I sent an email out to the company warning them that this was coming, and because these stats are going to start back on January 1st for this current year, that there will be a quota of writing calls they have to meet. We have a report created that shows how many calls each person has rode on the fire truck, even the position they rode, if they rode as the crew, as they rode as the driver, or if they were the officer on the piece. So those calls are very easily to be pulled from the reports. So yes, we've already seen some people, like I said, particularly some of our older members and lifetime members, riding the fire trucks more and having lots of questions about how many calls they have to make to receive this. So like I said, if it costs more money, it's a win-win for both of us because we're keeping that staffing on the fire trucks.
So we've increased staffing as a result of it. so far.
Absolutely, we've already seen a difference.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyer. Any other questions for Chief Hurst? Chief, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Good evening and welcome. May you please have your name and address for the record. I know you filled a form out, but you raised your hand. You beat me to it.
Good evening. My name's Brandy Graziosi, 2203 Foley Road in outside of Havity Grace.
Welcome.
I am the president for the Havity Grace Ambulance Corps. Nice to meet you all. And I came to speak in support of the legislation as well. We are making efforts to increase our volunteer responses as well as in the future increase our foundation crews in preparation for the hospital leaving, because we run 130 to 150 calls a month, which is up from last year. Last year we were doing like 100 a month when COVID was keeping people home. So sadly, the revenue does not quite reflect that. But we're working on that as well. We've got a new ambulance. You know, we're trying to prepare for the situation to come, and that includes recruiting, like Scotty said. I mean, anything we can do to get people in, get people to stay, get people to ride the unit. I mean, we've even gone so far as to reduce the requirements for driving. You used to have to be an aide to drive. Now you can just be an EMR, which is a lower level of training, and I actually drive myself now. So yeah, we are in favor of the legislation, and if you guys have any questions, I am happy to answer them.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Boyer?
So you're the new president. Have there been a lot of changes as far as the leadership within the ambulance corps?
No, so Pete and Paul are still chief and assistant chief. I was treasurer for the last 2 years. I got promoted, and we found a new treasurer. So he's actually a treasurer for a few other things. So he's a great fit. And Brian had a baby. Yay! The 5'9" family is growing.
And I know the county has been also offering, I guess it's not scholarships, it's reimbursement for training
Tuition reimbursement. Yeah,
and helping for as well?
I think so. I mean, we've got at least 2 people in paramedic class, right, or finishing up paramedic right now that are going to get reimbursed because they both paid out of pocket and they'll be getting reimbursed for it.
So you have more volunteers, slowly getting more volunteers?
I think we're, yeah, and we're going to increase recruitment now that COVID's ending and classes will hopefully be more readily available. Because with COVID, they weren't even hosting classes for a while.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience this evening here to speak on Ordinance 1065? Council President, any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that I think this is excellent legislation. In support of what I've considered many times over as our true unsung heroes. I have to say up front, if we had to pay for these volunteer services, it would be very, very costly. So this is a small price to pay for the city of Havre Grace. And more importantly, it shows our volunteers that we really appreciate what they do, and it's a small way of saying thanks. So I'm going to be in full support of this legislation. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. Council, any other questions or comments while we are under the public hearing for Ordinance 1065? Okay, without any further comments from the council, without any other members of the audience wishing to speak, I now close public hearing for Ordinance 1065. The time is 7:14. Okay, we will go back to our council meeting agenda. We've done the roll call, pledge of allegiance, opening prayer. We're going to go to the approval of minutes. City council meeting minutes on item number 5. It's going to be the city council meeting minutes of February 7th, 2022. Council have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Ringsacher, seconded by Councilmember Martin.
Mr. Mayor, I'm abstaining from the vote since I wasn't here at the meeting.
Okay, let the record reflect. Council President Glenn will abstain from the vote. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. City council meeting minutes of February 7th, 2022 are approved, 5-0 in the affirmative. Item B, city council meeting closed session minutes of February 7th, 2022. Council have a motion. Motion by Councilmember Zinner, seconded by Councilmember Ringsacher. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. City council meeting closed session minutes carry 5-0 in the affirmative. Go to item number 6, comments from citizens. This is the part of this evening's agenda. If you're here to speak on an agenda item, or if you're here to speak on any other matter of city business, this is the time to do so. Normally, I would defer to forms that are pre-filled out first, and then I will just call on the audience at large if you wish to speak. So the first person I would like to call up would be Ms. Jean Johnson. Good evening, Ms. Johnson. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
Please have, can we just please have your address just for the record?
Yes, my name is Jean Johnson. I live at 666 Chesapeake Drive. And I'm happy to be here tonight. And I also, I don't know whether it's against the rules, but I have a statement from Carol Nemeth. She wasn't able to be here tonight. Should I wait and do that again later?
Whatever you want to do. You can read it
Okay.
into the record
All right.
or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I feel like I should have some balloons over my head here. I'm speaking wholeheartedly to endorse the resolution on the heritage properties that will be introduced tonight, I think, by Carolyn Zinner. I really applaud the mayor and the city council for starting a city-sponsored program to permanently mark over 30 structures. These markers will inform our residents, including our young people, and visitors about the rich historic legacy we are proud to promote. As I said when I spoke last summer in support of adding a demolition delay provision to the updated demolition ordinance, there's really only one town in America with history like ours. I truly think that that is something we need to, really be proud to promote our history. Mayor Martin, the city council, and city staff, Shane was around here somewhere earlier, and I don't think Diane's here tonight, really have done a lot to protect our historic legacy over these last few years. I'd like to just quickly comment on a couple of things that have been done lately, because I think sometimes we don't take a pause and celebrate our successes. Historic preservation in Havre Grace, historic preservation efforts in Havre Grace over the last few years. As you know, way back when, in 1977, we had an inventory done of our historic properties, and that resulted in 1982 in Havre Grace being deemed a National Register of Historic District. Now, here we are in the second decade of the 21st century with a great number of preservation successes by the city to celebrate. Specifically, in the last couple years, we've had a couple of ordinances and resolutions. We had the resolution to give property owners an incentive to convert medical offices or apartments to single-family homes near the hospital. We had the 2018 resolution defining the local historic district. We had a zoning change about setbacks and garages on Union, Congress, and Washington Streets. That was in just last spring. And then tonight, we have the Heritage Properties Resolution to mark about 30 or so of our really historic properties. Also, under the leadership of this mayor and the city council, the city accepted Barry Burns' gift of the Moore Family Homestead in 2016. Since then, the city has added fencing, air conditioning, a new roof, and soon to be some nice signage there. Under the mayor's leadership, the Havre Grace Opera House was voter approved, financed by a bond issue, and was restored. And as you all know, that project was honored with a state preservation award. Another wonderful aspect of preservation efforts has been the city support of the Havre Grace Colored School Museum and Cultural Center, and also support of commemorative markers. We love our markers in town, don't we? We have the Lafayette Farewell Trail marker, we have the Elizabeth Forbes marker, and we have, of course, that wonderful Ernest Burke statue, which is a big hit with my grandchildren. And then lastly, we just had a couple weeks ago the whole charrettes tool design process, which I think was a heck of a lot of fun, and productive and really impressive. What a terrific track record for sure, and one the Historic Preservation Commission, upon which I serve, we're eager to see the city continue that process. I really look forward to adding more properties, however. You give her an inch, she wants a mile, and hope that we will add many over the next few years. There are truly hundreds, seems hard to believe, but it's true. We have hundreds of what are called contributing structures within the historic district that are waiting for recognition. I also look forward to going beyond marking. You knew I couldn't be completely nice, right? I really want to see us go beyond marking into protection. Here's a quick analogy, maybe a little forced, but it was what I could come up with in a few minutes. It's great to mark things, a street crossing, for example, where kids are going to be nearby a school or something. But it's quite another matter to actually do things to protect the kids. That would be safer streets, education at home and at school, car drivers who obey the speed limit, and all those sort of corollary things. Of course, the warning about kids in the area is great, and believe me, we are thrilled about the Heritage Properties marking resolution. But again, that said, we are thrilled, and we really are excited, and we thank you all. Our history, as our flags say, is worth preserving. Now, Carol had some very nice things to say as well, and she listed some of those accomplishments that I've already gone over, but I'm just going to read her letter. She's doing an online class or something tonight and was not able to be here. Good evening, Mayor and City Council. This evening represents an auspicious moment in time in which the City of Havre de Grace will be officially recognizing approximately 29 historic structures, which will be called heritage properties, due to their exceptional architecture, character, ownership, or contribution to the history of Havre de Grace. The saying goes that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. For these historic buildings, the resolution represents the first step by Mayor Bill Martin and City Council in recognizing that certain historical structures are worth protecting and preserving. There are many more to be sure, but I, for one, and all members of the Historic Preservation Commission are grateful for this first step. It's my understanding that the ordinance will that an ordinance will follow that may provide certain protections or aid of some kind to ensure that these structures will remain intact for future generations to enjoy. At this time, I would like to congratulate Mayor Bill Martin, for his accomplishments thus far in the area of historic preservation. And then she goes into the ones that I have already specified. And let me just get to the end here so I make sure I do a proper job of her remarks. To date, Bill Martin has taken more steps toward preserving historic structures than any other mayor before him. I recognize that as our mayor, you are embracing the new as well as the old, the future as well as the past, as you should. This is important and necessary. You will continue to work to improve the city parks, the business districts, and downtown area with lighting, music, and continuous improvements on the infrastructure, as well as working closely with tourism, adding modern improvements, and encouraging youth. Oh, I thought encouraging growth. We'll encourage youth too. Still, it's apparent that you have kept in mind that this is historic Havre de Grace, which in and of itself is a strong draw for many tourists who visit the city and who are interested in knowing about its long and varied history. The history of Havre de Grace is important, and our history should continue to be told. Our historic structures are another way to present our history in a tangible way, making our personal story visible to all who walk its streets. Through your continued guidance and leadership, we can continue to protect our history and look with hope to this city's future. Thank you, Mayor Martin and City Council, for all the members, and from all the members of the Historic Preservation Commission. We look forward to working with you on your future endeavors. Carol Nemeth. Any questions?
Council, any question for Ms. Johnson? Ms. Johnson, I appreciate you speaking tonight, representing Historic Preservation Commission. Thank you for your kind words, and thank Ms. Nemeth for her kind words in her letter for the council and administration. I know a couple years ago, I charged the commission with a task to identify these properties, and I think the list was very huge at one point. And I know how
We still have it.
Yeah, I know. I'm sure he didn't give her the list. And I can only imagine. I mean, when I think I might have said something like, "Just give me the top 20," and
Yeah.
we're fine with 30-something.
There was a lot of hand-wringing about that.
It's a start. Well, like you say, it's a start.
Yes,
and
it's
see
a
how this
wonderful
plays
start.
out. I realize there's a lot of properties in the city that have architectural significance, or historic family perhaps live there, or there's some kind of story that makes it important to our city's heritage. And that's why I call them heritage properties. And again, I want to thank you and each member of the commission. I know you really took a lot of time to narrow this down. And I apologize, it's taken a little while to get this legislation on the agenda. But I wanted to make it something that we thought was going to be fit properly. And yes, there will be accompanying ordinance that will come along with it, in which we will find out how to assist those who live in a heritage property, or aid them in a way to encourage these structures to stand, or people to keep investing in them. So again, I think I'm very happy with this, and I think this is a great relationship of how the administration works with the Historic Preservation Commission. We appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you.
And again, I thank my staff, and I thank Mr. Gamatoria, who's one of the chief authors behind the resolution.
I know he was, and I thank him specifically for that. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson.
Fair enough.
Okay, I'd like to call up Miss Carol Allen. Good evening, Miss Allen. Welcome. May you please have your address for the record?
I live at 814 Market Street, but I'm speaking on behalf of the Lighthouse this evening, which now is at 714, had an address change recently on Concord Street.
Welcome.
So good evening. I want to thank Mayor Martin, Council President Glenn, and all of the council members for the opportunity that you provide for comments about events that are proposed to be held at the Havre de Grace City Parks. In my capacity as Executive Director for the Friends of Concord Point Lighthouse, I want to comment on several of the events that you will be reviewing this evening. And I want to start by providing just a little bit of context for my remarks. I want to mention that the Friends organization was established to preserve and promote the Lighthouse on behalf of the City of Havre de Grace. This intent is stated clearly in our Articles of Incorporation. I'm going to do just a short quotation, just one sentence. The purpose of this corporation shall be to support and promote Concord Point Lighthouse and the Keeper's Dwelling as historic landmarks, to preserve and improve the existing properties by sponsoring, promoting, initiating, and conducting charitable and educational programs, and to encourage the broadest possible participation by individuals and groups toward these purposes, close quotation. At present, our primary educational program is carried out by opening the Lighthouse Tower and the Keeper's House Museum to the general public free of charge on Saturdays and Sundays from April through October. This means that there are usually only 28 days per year that the public can access the tower. I'm here this evening to ask the mayor and the council to work with event sponsors and planners to find creative ways to hold festivals in Concord Point Park without hampering access by the general public to either of these two iconic edifices during our open hours. Last summer, access was completely restricted during one festival and hampered during several other events. My hope is that we can do a better job this summer of planning festivals that will both delight our tourists and city residents alike, while also preserving access, in particular, to the Lighthouse, which is one of the main attractions of this site. Most of the festivals and other events that you will review this evening are being planned in a manner that does not hamper public access. For example, the event organizers for Defenders Day and the Waterfront Festival plan to locate the beer garden for those events to the right of the Lighthouse. There will not be any fencing that prevents access by the general public to the tower itself. Also, I've been in touch with both Lori and Bambi, and they've assured me that the problems that we encountered last summer during those two events, when access to the Keeper's House was significantly obstructed by food trucks parked directly in front of it, will not be repeated this year. The map presented by the American Cancer Society for their Relay for Life event also seems to avoid placing food trucks directly in front of the Keeper's House, and it does not show any fencing around the Lighthouse. Likewise, the Easter egg hunt does not present any obstructions. Among the events being reviewed this evening, only one will completely cut off access by the general public to the Lighthouse during our open hours. This is the Susquehanna Wine and Seafood Festival. The map for this event clearly shows that the Lighthouse would again this year be completely fenced in, and that only people who have bought tickets to the festival will be able to enter the whole park. I'm asking the mayor and the council to request the event organizer to modify the map so that the general public will have access to the tower, ideally following a plan similar to the one proposed for Defenders Day and the Waterfront Festival. I thank you for considering this request, and as I have done previously, I want to reiterate my thanks to Tammy Brinkman for working closely with me to coordinate event planning in this park. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Council, any questions for Ms. Allen? Councilmember Robertson.
Hey, thank you for speaking. Excuse me. So if I'm understanding, the Lighthouse would typically be open September 24th when the Wine and Seafood Festival is taking place?
Yes,
Okay, got it, thank you.
okay.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Allen.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're still under citizen comments. For agenda items or other city business, I don't have any more pre-filled out speaker forms, so I'll just call on the audience in general. Is anybody here this evening to speak and address the council on any matter of business? Okay, all right. Thank you, everybody. We'll move on to item number 7. Appointments. We have 2 appointments to the Marina Commission, and we will hand this off to Councilmember Ringsager, who is the council liaison to the Marina Commission.
Mr. Mayor, Council, would you like me to do them both at the same time or individually?
You can do it both at the same time.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Council, I make a motion to reappoint Mr. Bruce Lyon and John Narvell to the Marina Commission.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Ringsager, seconded by the council president, for the reappointment of Mr. Bruce Lyon and Mr. John Narvell to the Marina Commission. Questions or comments? Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, Council, these are both absolutely amazing gentlemen. There's nobody that has better in-depth knowledge of our marina than these 2 guys. Bruce always says that nothing happens in the marina that he doesn't see because he lives right outside the marina. And I will say that I moved here August 22nd, 1992, and I met both of these fine men my very first day in town, and they made me feel at home, and they're Havre Grace through and through.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Ringsager.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions or comments on the reappointments? Okay, Council, we have a motion by Councilmember Ringsager, seconded by Council President, for the reappointment of Mr. Bruce Lyon and Mr. John Narvell to the Marina Commission. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The reappointment of Bruce Lyon and John Narvell to Marina Commission are approved, 6-0 in affirmative. Item number 8 this evening, recognitions. This evening we have no recognitions. Item 9, proclamations. This evening we have no proclamations. Item 10, presentations. We do have a presentation this evening. We have a Water and Sewer Commission report.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Dan has some family health concerns, so he has asked if I could leave the dais and do the presentation to the council.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just to preface, the Water and Sewer Commission report is an annual report that the commission gives to the council. Presented tonight by the liaison to the commission, Councilmember Martin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, citizens. This is the annual report due to the city, required by the ordinance. So, keep going, Steve, one more. All right, the summary of the fiscal year 2021. You'll be able to see that the funds available were $439.9, and capital expenditures were, after you figure the total capital expenditures, were $5,446,000 and change. The net fund balance was a loss of 1.046. The fund balance at the beginning of the year was $308,000, so leaving the fund balance at the year end at a negative $737,000. Projected connections. For the budget, we had projected 80 connections. In actuality, we had 73, so a -7 was the issue from that. Capital cost recovery fees were projected at $1,325,700. The actual was $1,459,318. The variance was a positive $133,618. The summary of the fiscal year 2021. Funds to address the revenues required are generated by 3 distinct revenue sources: connection fees and capital cost recovery fees, rates charged to customers for a purchase of water, which includes a sewage rate component, and creation of a fee structure of some kind. All combined revenue sources from A and B historically continue to underperform the revenue necessary to meet the city's obligation for debt and any realistic capital improvement. You need 128 connections to actually meet the budget. The mayor and city council recognize the vulnerability of the water and sewer fund and continue to monitor the city growth where necessary to raise rates to fund required infrastructure maintenance and replacement. One has received approval to borrow $15 million over the next 5 years to fund infrastructure maintenance and improvements. To date, 1.457 has been drawn upon from the fund for the capital improvements. Acceptance and legislative execution of the Water and Sewer Commission's Fiscal 21 recommendations. Continued public outreach programs to educate the citizens on the challenges of Fund 9. Continuing the strategy through the Department of Economic Development to encourage future economic growth through aggressive efforts to attract high volume, and remain open to negotiations with Harford County to be available water resource. Continuing to support capital investment plan at the wastewater treatment plant. The year-to-date overview for fiscal year 2022. The Commission is pleased to and remains confident the challenges of the Water and Sewer Fund are both recognized and understood by the Mayor and City Council. This is most evident by the following Mayor and Council actions. Continued endorsement of public outreach, continued development and prioritization of a detailed capital improvement plan, and embracing the need for affordable long-term debt financing to address the infrastructure. Continued follow-through on the referendum on February 4th of 2020, through which $9.7 million was obtained. Adding Aberdeen as a future customer for excess water production capabilities, working with the planning department and creating new development legislation within the city limits to reduce red tape for developers and city residents. Reorganizing the administrative staffs to better manage the significant number of large-scale projects being implemented by the city. The challenges for fiscal year 2023. One, the big one, maintaining the momentum. We have been moving forward in a very positive manner, and we need to continue that. The administration must continue its marketing strategy to discover Havre as a city of choice, to own and operate businesses, to relocate a family, to experience our new middle and senior high school, and to experience our parks and participate in our events, while simultaneously demanding a time-sensitive and aggressive reconstruction of our wastewater treatment plant and a high-priority infrastructure projects being completed seamlessly to the end users. The recommendations for fiscal year 2023. As required by the City Code, Chapter 25, Article 11, Section 25-69B, the Commission submits the following recommendations to the administration. Number one, continue identifying failures, repairing critical components, and committing to improvements through Fund 9 areas, and your continued emphasis on the reduction in operating expenses using best practices. Second, capital investment in supervisory control and data acquisition, the SCADA system, should improve efficiency, and Tim has been doing a great job getting that and his staff getting that accomplished. The work was delayed due to COVID-19 shutdown and will continue in completion in fiscal year 23. The debt service. The administration must continue its practice of realistic estimates for annual connections in preparing the fiscal year 23 budget and adjust expenses downward for revenue shortfalls. 4, continue the CCRF, so recovery fees, its current rate. Increase the IRF to the inflation rate experienced by the large-scale project with the CIP. Now, when they're talking about the inflation rate, what they're recommending is not the inflation rate you'll see announced on TV all the time and in the news. What they're talking about is the actual inflation rate that is seen by the city in the cost that we experience. So it's not going to be as high as it's seen in general, but but has to be reflected, because what happens is we are not bringing in the revenue. We're not increasing it. So even though our fees may increase because of inflation, if we don't put something in place, we won't be able to get to the point, or we'll get to the point where we were several years back. 6, the Commission is deeply concerned with the annual cumulative effects of inflation on Fund 9, sustainable revenue requirements. To address the issue, the Commission strongly recommends the implementation of a legislative mandated annual rate increase to meet the annual increases in the operational cost. 7 is continued emphasis on employee succession plan for both the water plant, wastewater plant needs to be addressed. And again, this is something we have been acting on as the administration and council. The administration should become more aggressive again in the fat, oil, grease, and flushable wipes. Several years back, we had a program where the middle school was involved, and they did presentations. So again, continuing the education, getting our youth involved with this fat, oil, grease project would be very, very helpful. Continue its proactive approach in marketing to alternative water customers, including those outside the city of Havre, Grace. Hartford County and Aberdeen come to mind. These efforts in strategic planning should continue to include aggressively marketing of new businesses that require high-volume water use, consider affordable incentives to attract the same, evaluations of the current water and wastewater capacity at locations, and consider placing timetables on developers. Consideration of the impact of future relocation of the hospital and repurposing of the current Hartford Memorial Hospital. Investigation of whether wastewater capacity credit sharing program is viable. Initiate an aggressive program to identify, eliminate inflow and infiltration. Tim's, again, the Department of Public Works has been working very hard on that because it does have a negative impact on our wastewater treatment plant, and the effects on that mean more repairs. Consider alternate use of processed water from the wastewater treatment plant. Again, so looking at how we can use the gray water that is produced and how we can get it back into our system. We commend the Mayor and City Council and Administration in identifying failures, repairing critical components, and committing to improvements throughout Fund 9 areas, and the continued emphasis on reductions in operating expenses using best practices. It is imperative that revenues continue to be allocated as efficiently and effectively as possible. This is particularly true for our borrowed revenue. This report is respectfully submitted by the Water and Sewer Commission, James Clark, Citizen Member Tracy Conway, Chief of Finance, Garrett Lytle, Citizen Member, myself, Jason Robertson as Council Liaison, Tim Whitty, Director of DPW. A special thanks to Dan for doing this presentation for me so that I can do it as Citizen Member, and also Patrick Seipolt, Director of Capital Projects. Mr. Mayor, Council, I thank you for your time and your support of the Water and Sewer Commission.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Councilmember Martin. We appreciate it.
Questions?
Any questions, Council? Councilmember
For,
Robinson.
the Aberdeen, water supply into Aberdeen, when do we think that we'll start seeing revenue for that, and what is our projection for revenue for that?
I'll go to Tim on that one when we think we're going to finally finish that connection with Aberdeen.
Oh, we're basically waiting for the spring to start, so we got a little bit of delay. We ran into some issues with some utility relocations. So that should start, I think it should start in March. We should be moving forward in March with the connection.
And when will we see revenue?
Well, we're going to probably see revenue pretty quick because we're actually connecting in to Rock Glen. So one of the things we're going down to, we're connecting and running into a vault, an existing vault that's with Hartford in the city. And then Aberdeen's going to connect from there and run it down. We're also connecting. Connection will run to Rock Glen, so they'll be going ahead with they'll be moving ahead with we'll be getting water from Rock Glen, the residents there at Rock Glen.
So to summarize, we don't have to build a whole pipe all the way down Route 40. We're tying into existing pipe to
We're
get it
tied
over to
into-
Aberdeen.
Yes, and
All
we're
right.
connecting to a portion of Aberdeen. Rock Glen is in the city of
Yeah, all right, so hopefully next year, next fiscal year, we'll see some revenue from that.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Any other questions for Councilmember Martin?
Again, thank you, Council President, and Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, we will move on to item number 11, this evening's agenda. We have three resolutions coming up, and so we're going to start with the first one, Resolution A. It's a calendar resolution concerning stormwater management agreement relating to Greenway Farms Phases 2 and 3. And I will hand that off to the DPW Council Committee Chair, Councilmember Zinner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I make a motion to introduce a resolution concerning stormwater management agreement relating to Greenway Farms Phases 2 and 3.
Second?
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Zinner, second by Councilmember Robertson. This is a motion to introduce an ordinance, motion to introduce a resolution concerning stormwater management relating to Greenway Farms Phases 2 and 3. Questions or comments on the introduction? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce resolution carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Council, this will be Resolution 2022-03. 2022-03. A resolution by the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, pursuant to Sections 33 and 34 of the City Charter and the Local Government Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, to authorize the Mayor to enter into a stormwater management agreement relating to Greenway Farms Phases 2 and 3. Council, I have a motion to adopt this resolution.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Ringsager, second by Councilmember Zinner. Question or comments? Councilmember Zinner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This resolution is putting in place a new builder at Greenway Farms, D.R. Horton. D.R. Horton is a national builder incorporated in the state of Delaware. The legislation that was passed in April of last year, Ordinance 1050, stated out very distinct agreement in terms of which developments and developers could be grandfathered in under existing stormwater management criteria. This project, because of the length of time it's taken and the different site plans, does not fall under the grandfathering allotment. So they will need to declare their own stormwater management. And this agreement is between, or this resolution is between the city and D.R. Horton. Once the build-out is complete, then D.R. Horton will turn it over to the HOA for maintenance. So it's good that we passed the legislation 1050 back in April, and D.R. Horton will need to follow those recommendations and live up to the stormwater management of the most recent and higher level requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Zinner.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments before the roll call vote? Okay. Council, this is going to be a roll call vote on Resolution 2022-03. Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsager.
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Council President Glenn.
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, calendar resolution concerning stormwater management agreement relating to Greenway Farms Phases 2 and 3 is adopted by this council, 6-0. Okay, item B, calendar resolution concerning lifting a moratorium on pain management clinics. And I will hand this off to the chair of the planning committee, Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I make a motion to introduce a calendar resolution concerning lifting the moratorium on pain management clinics.
Second?
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Ringsager, second by Councilmember Robertson. This is a motion to introduce a resolution. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce a resolution concerning a lifting moratorium on pain management clinics carries 6-0 in the affirmative. This will be Resolution 2022-04, 2022-04. A resolution by the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, pursuant to Sections 33 and 34 of the City Charter and the Local Government Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, to lift the moratorium relating to approvals or permits for pain management clinics or facilities for medication-assisted treatment for addiction. Council will have a motion to adopt the Resolution 2022-04.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Zinner, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. Questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Ringsager.
Sir. What this calendar resolution does is it lifts a current standing moratorium that we passed last February, I believe it was, or January maybe, and then we gave a 6-month extension past that in order for us to establish our standards for pain management clinics within the city, certain requirements where they could be in the size and location just around town. So we passed that recently, and now we're lifting the moratorium to allow those to be in town.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Ringsager. Any other questions or comments? Council President.
Just one question. Is it safe to assume that we've got all required zoning requirements and standards in place to address any future pain management clinics?
Sir, that was the intent of the previous bill that we passed. Was it last meeting or the meeting before?
I think it was the meeting before.
Okay. So
Just want to make sure and clarify for the public.
Correct. The intent of the moratorium was to allow for myself and April Ishak to work on an ordinance, and that ordinance should take care of any concerns that we had previously, and that ordinance was adopted by council and should be effective, I believe, by the middle of March.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Any other further questions or comments? Okay, Council, we're going to do a roll call vote on Resolution 2022-04. Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsager.
yes.
Council President Glenn.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative. Counter Resolution 2022-04 concerning lifting a moratorium on pain management clinics is adopted. Item C, counter resolution concerning recognizing properties identified as heritage properties, and I will hand this resolution off for an introduction by the liaison to Historic Preservation Commission, Councilmember Zinner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I make a motion to introduce calendar resolution concerning recognizing properties identified as heritage properties.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Zinner, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. This is a motion to introduce a resolution. Questions or comments on the introduction of this resolution? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce a resolution concerning recognizing properties identified as heritage properties for the City of Havre de Grace carries 6-0 in affirmative. Council, this will be calendar resolution 2022-05. 2022-05. A resolution by the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, pursuant to Section 33 and 34 of the City Charter and the Land Use and Local Government Articles of the Annotated Code of Maryland, to accept and recognize certain properties identified as heritage property due to its exceptional architecture, character, ownership, or contribution to the history of Havre de Grace. Council, do I have a motion to adopt this resolution?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Zinner and seconded by Councilmember Robertson. Questions or comments on this resolution? Councilmember Boyer.
In the resolution, it states on line 31 that there are 28 structures that meet the criteria, but it doesn't identify what the criteria is. can we get a list of what the criteria was, so that we know moving forward for additional locations, if they would meet that criteria, et cetera, just so that we're all starting in the same place?
Okay, so there was quite a bit of discussion, and as Ms. Johnson talked about, the list had been very extensive. And the mayor had originally asked for about 25. It took some time, and then we started to revisit it again within the past 18 months, I would say, and tried to get a list that was over 100 properties down to the requisite number. A lot of discussion ensued. So the criteria, I would say, is not necessarily written down, but was an oral history of these properties during commission meetings. So in the end, we came up with, I think, even more than this, but not as many as the original number that was well over 100. What happened then was that the commission voted and ranked the properties on the list based on architecture, based on age, based on value to the community. When you look at the list, there are private homes, there are public facilities, there are city-owned properties, and there are churches. So when the commission looked at the aggregate in whole, they decided for the first cut, these appeared to be, I don't want to say the most valuable because I don't want to dismiss any of the other properties, but maybe mostly historically significant. The term heritage properties came about because it's the aggregate of, you take the age, you take the architecture, you take the culture of the times in a thriving historic city, and this is what the commission saw and presented this list to the mayor approximately 10 months ago.
So then, what criteria would be used to add to the list?
Well, we would have to take a look at the list that's left, and again, go through the same process in terms of, do we want to focus on age? Do we want to focus on, let's say, for example, the properties that were owned by colored people in the early or the late 19th century, and take a look at maybe the few properties that are left standing and have not been demolished due to neglect or because somebody wants to build another house, and value them. So it's going to take a give and take and another discussion and another ranking in terms of how the commission feels in terms of nominating additional properties as we move forward.
Okay, so what I'm getting, you went through an extensive process.
Yes.
To come to this, but there really isn't any set criteria. The criteria was through a process of elimination in order to get the list to a manageable size.
Correct. There wasn't a matrix, so to speak, in terms of a numbering grid or anything like that, or a value given. It was, when you look at these properties, I think you would be hard to say that not one of these properties belongs on this list.
And I'm not saying
yeah.
that the items on this list
Yeah.
don't. My concern is to make, like how the list grows in the future. And when we say that they, meeting the criteria, just making sure that we're doing apples to apples again, as far as meeting the criteria.
Well, I don't know if we can ever have apples and apples again, based on these properties, is what I'm saying. And I think it's the role of the commission, because they are a commission of the city, to have the knowledge and the experience to be able to say that, you know, it may only be 5 properties we can pick the next time. It may be a couple years before we can add more properties to the list. So not knowing that, things change. And we don't know exactly what the criteria will be in terms of identifying more properties. But I can tell you the list is extensive. There will not be a problem picking other properties, but may not fit into a matrix type situation or a numbering type situation. It's going to be a vote with the
It's going to be an
members of the
emotional
commission.
vote. It'll be an emotional vote.
It will be, and I don't think that's inappropriate.
So my next question is, there are 3 properties here that it says not yet inventoried. Could you explain that?
They're not part, I don't know if they're not part of the original inventory that was done in the 70s, or if it's a different historical register that they have to be inventoried on. So I can't give you a definite answer. I'll have to refer to Jean or
Actually,
Anybody
else?
answer that
Mr.
question?
Gambatori had a few things he wanted to say to add on to that.
Yeah, I think the intent here for council, and you did a great job, Councilmember Zinner, at the explanation and
Thank you.
how we got to this point. So this is the first, this is probably the second or third step in this whole process. The next step is the ordinance itself. And within the ordinance, I would think maybe the criteria could be crafted in a way where it is a little more, there's a little more guidance given as to what things would look like in the future. While this is, there's two more pieces to this puzzle, which will be the ordinance, and then also the historic, we're going to work with the Historic Preservation Commission, and we're trying to provide them with some identifying markers that we want to use, that they can recommend back to council for approval, that will kind of give it the historic significance, or the heritage and historic significance that we want. That's a little bit different from anything else that we've seen in town, that we've taken, we've provided our own Jimmy Burrell with a number of ideas, and he's kind of crafting a few things up. But I would say, as far as if we want to get into the nuts and bolts of what we really want this to look like, that's the law, and that would be the ordinance would be the next step.
So we would have the criteria in that. Can you speak to the 3 that are not yet, what that means, not yet inventoried? Does that mean we have work yet more to do?
Would you point out the line?
Yeah, well, there's no numbers on it, but it's the Courier House, the Havre Colored School Museum, and the Matilda O'Neill House.
I'm not,
In
Page
the
3.
third column.
page 3. Oh, so what that speaks to is when you go to the Historic Trust website, that's where you can click on and you can get all the background of the entire facility. So the Historic Trust doesn't have that posted yet. So that inventory and the detail, the background is not yet posted there on their website. That's what that means. These websites actually came from the Maryland Historic Trust site. If you go on their site, you can see it's got, in some cases, pictures of the house, and others, a detailed lineage of who owned the house when it was built, so on and so forth.
And how do you get on that site?
Well, there's the
No, I mean, how does
websites.
this structure, the Courier House, get on the site?
I couldn't tell you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a question for the Historic Preservation Commission. To get on there, I would imagine there's a significant criteria to get selected to get on. I don't know what the nuts and bolts of that are.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
No, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councilman Robertson?
Hey, I just want to say thank you very much to the Historic Preservation Commission. I've been hearing a lot about this endeavor through the eyes of ETAB because, you know, it's brought up a lot at our meetings, and as well as members of the Historic Preservation Commission. So I really want to thank you guys for taking this on. I think it's important to kind of consolidate and leave a legacy of these properties, you know, for future generations. And I commend all of the work that's been done to categorize them, find all of the histories of them. I live in a historic home in a historic part of town, and it's really near and dear to me, you know, to have that history well-researched and, you know, available to me. So thank you guys for all that you do. Really glad that, you know, the mayor has seen fit to take this endeavor on. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Robertson. Any other further questions or comments from council on Resolution 2022-05? Councilmember Zinner?
I just want to thank Jean Johnson and for her comments in person tonight, and also Carol Nemeth for sending in her comments.
Thank you very much. Any further questions or comments? Council, this will be a roll call vote. Roll call vote on Resolution 2022-05. concerning recognizing properties identified as heritage properties in the city of Havre de Grace. Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer. Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Council President Glenn.
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsacher.
Yes.
By a vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, counter resolution 2022-05 concerning the recognition of properties identified as heritage properties in the city of Havre de Grace is adopted by council. Thank you very much, council. We're going to go to item 12, ordinances. This evening we have a bunch of ordinances. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. All right. First ordinance is going to be concerning establishing a public open-air market. This is going to be a first reading. I'm going to hand this off to Councilmember Martin, who's the chair of the Parks and Harbor Committee.
Mr. Mayor, council, citizens, I make a motion that we move forward with an ordinance to establish a public open-air market. It'll be a new city code, chapter 112.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Ringsacher. This is a motion to introduce an ordinance. Questions or comments on the introduction of this ordinance? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce an ordinance concerning the establishment of public open-air market carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Council, this is going to be ordinance 1066. An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Havre de Grace adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter for the purpose of establishing a public open-air market. Council, do I have a motion to adopt this ordinance on first reading?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Ringsager and seconded by Councilmember Martin. Questions or comments before the roll call? Okay. This is a roll call vote on ordinance 1066, first reading. Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsacher.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative. Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, not that I can or anything.
Sorry about that. Would you like to vote on this, Council President?
I would love to.
Okay, I'm sorry. Council President Glenn, how say you?
Yes.
My apologies. My apologies. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative. Ordinance 1066 concerning the establishment of public open-air markets is approved by council on first reading. Council President, when would you like to set the public hearing?
We'll have a public hearing on March the 7th, prior to the city council meeting.
Okay. Public hearing will be set Monday, March 7th at 7 p.m., preceding the council meeting. Thank you very much, council. Okay, we're going to go to item B, ordinance concerning repealing and replacing Article 25. Article 4, Chapter 25, Article 4, Board of Appeals. This is going to be a first reading ordinance, and I'm going to hand this off to the chair of the Planning Committee, Councilmember Ringsacher.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I make a motion to introduce an ordinance concerning repealing and replacing Chapter 25 of Article 4, Board of Appeals for first reading.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Ringsacher and it's seconded by Councilmember Martin. This is a motion to introduce an ordinance concerning and replacing Chapter 25, Article 4, Board of Appeals. Questions or comments on the introduction of this ordinance? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay. Motion to introduce ordinance carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Council, this will be noted as ordinance 1067, ordinance 1067, an ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and sections 33 and 34 of the Havre City Charter to repeal and replace Article 4 of the City Code titled Board of Appeals. Council, I have a motion to adopt Ordinance 1067 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Ringsacher. Questions or comments on this ordinance? Councilmember Ringsacher.
Mr. Mayor, Council, citizens, this has been an effort from our planning department, and our city attorney to correct some procedural issues with our Board of Appeals. And I'd like to actually punt to our Director of Planning for further explanation, if I may.
Okay. Mr. Grimm.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councilman Ringsacher. This ordinance has been prepared to repeal and replace the Board of Appeals chapter of the City Code, which was in desperate need of updating to become consistent with current accepted legal practice with respect to variances and conditional uses and things like that, as well as specifying specific procedures that were lacking in our ordinance, as well as there are some items within the code that are conflicting. So this corrects those, and it really brings us kind of into the modern era of zoning practice and land use practice. As many of you know, I'm a zoning nerd for this kind of stuff, the Board of Appeals kind of being one of my favorite things to work on and looking at land use law. So with the help of Ms. Ishak, we've been able to prepare this ordinance and really kind of update it and modernize it and make sure that our Board of Appeals is really evaluating the cases that come before them in accordance with accepted case law that has been handed down by the court system, and making sure that we're not just handing out variances to just anyone just because it may be a good project or something like that. We want to make sure there's a consistent set of standards that is consistently applied by our Board of Appeals, and we can make sure that those decisions that are handed down by our board are tight, and if they are appealed, that we can be assured that they won't be overturned by the court system. So again, I'd like to thank you all for bringing this in front of the council, and thanks to Ms. Ishak for looking at the ordinance and make sure it was consistent with the land use article of the annotated code. And I would argue that this is probably one of the most important ordinances that we've put forth to really modernize and make sure that when we move forward with new development that requires special approvals, that we're doing it the right way. So, sorry, I didn't mean to belabor that, but I think it's important.
That's what we need to hear for Mr. Grimm. Thank you very much for the explanation. Councilman Ringsacher.
No further comments, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilman Ringsacher. Any other questions or comments? All right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a roll call on Ordinance 1067 concerning the repeal and replacing Chapter 25, Article 4, Board of Appeals, first reading. Roll call vote. Council President Glenn.
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsacher.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
By a roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, Ordinance 1067 concerning repealing and replacing Chapter 25, Article 4, Board of Appeals is adopted by council on first reading. Council President Glenn, when would you like to have the public hearing on this ordinance?
We'll have it on March 7th, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we're going to have the public hearing on Ordinance 1067 on Monday, March 7th, preceding the council meeting. Thank you very much. Item C, ordinance concerning amending Chapter 151 regarding temporary signs, first reading. Chair of the Planning Committee, Councilmember Ringsacher.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I make a motion to introduce an ordinance concerning amending Chapter 151 regarding temporary signs for first reading.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Ringsacher, seconded by Councilmember Robertson. This is a motion to introduce an ordinance. Questions or comments on the introduction of this ordinance? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce an ordinance concerning temporary signs carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Council, this will be Ordinance 1068. Ordinance 1068. An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of the City of Havre de Grace adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, a local government article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and Sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter for the purpose of amending City Code Chapter 151 regarding temporary signs. Council, to have a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Martin, seconded by Councilman Robertson. Questions or comments? Councilman Martin?
Mr. Mayor, don't know whether we need a motion or a friendly amendment for some punctuation. On page 2.
Total of 5 for spacing.
Hmm?
Total of 5 for spacing issues.
Okay. If you got them, Jimmy, I'll let you
I'm
go.
sorry, no, that you were just helping.
What you got, Councilman Martin?
Page, and I missed a couple, so page 2, line 42, in between the word signage and allowed should be a space. Page 43, standards and of should be a space. I missed the other 3, Jimmy.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, also line 58, between the and placement.
Mm-hmm.
Line 62, at the end, between street and frontage. And there was a discussion as to whether or not that was actually one word.
There's another one.
67, line 67, between is and allowed at the end. On another. And I second his motion as a friendly amendment. If we need one.
Did you want to do this as a vote, or did you just want to do this as a friendly amendment?
Made as a friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment better.
Friendly amendment, okay, that was just some typos. I feel like I'm playing Wordle here, all right? So, okay, just a couple little typos, doesn't change the content of the resolution at all, so. All right, noted changes. Anything else, Councilman Martin?
No, sir.
Councilman Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, citizens, council, this is an effort from our administration to codify the existing city policy for temporary signs that can be moved quite easily to fit them into the existing sign code. It contains almost the exact same language for the square footage, square footage, yes, exactly, for where they can be placed. For instance, the 32 square foot area sign can be placed in a commercial and RB business district versus the 8 foot for the other districts. And it establishes a timeline for how long these signs can be up, no more than 90 days total in a 1-year period or 45 days consecutively. And that's all I have, sir.
Thank you very much, Councilman Ringsager. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Boyer?
My main question is, what is the policing part of this? Is it the police department that enforces this?
It would be the,
It would be code
Code
enforcement.
enforcement.
So our code enforcement person who's already overburdened is now going to be responsible for this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
That's what we do.
And the way this is going to work is that an individual who owns the property is going to ask, or to tell them that, tell our Department of Planning that they're going to put a sign in their front yard.
No, so this is for the city right away. Okay. And this is if you're putting signs out, let's say that if a developer or a person selling homes puts signs around, or let's say the football program even was putting signs around on different areas of right of way, they're required to, by the ordinance, to provide a map to the Department of Planning. One of the issues I see with that portion of that law is, let's say if you have an elected official come in and he puts 10 signs up, and then somebody asks him for signs, and you're going to be in City Hall every other day asking for, to update the map. That's what's currently written in the ordinance, but this is, again, first reading, so we can digest it.
Or I, as an individual, decide that I would like to put a sign in my yard, whether or not I ask permission from that elected official. I still have to let our Department of Planning know, and then I have to provide them with an exact map of where it's going to go in my yard. Because in the downtown area, the right-of-way is basically everyone's yards. You don't really have a lot of space. That's your own private property, right? Well, you have a lot. But, yeah, that's how this reads. And then it's going to be code enforcement's responsibility to go around and enforce it. Right?
I don't think that would be an onerous burden to add to our code enforcement, no. So yes, they would be responsible for that.
And it'll be code enforcement that receives all these requests?
Director of Administration, Inventory.
Yeah, so the way it works now, code enforcement goes around routinely and pulls signs out of the city right away that are there, whether it's a realtor, a church event, or whatever.
Power washing.
Power washing, and they spring up all over, in the parks, in the city right-of-ways. So we see this as no different. If there's an issue where we get a complaint, or as the city code enforcement officer does his normal routinely drive-throughs, if there's a violation, he just picks the sign up. Signs get stored on the city property. The owners are notified, and they have so many days to come get them. We don't destroy them. And then typically that's how it's been working since I've been involved.
So the way that our code is currently written, anybody who is selling a house in the downtown area, their realtor has to ask permission to put it in the yard?
Typically, signs like that in most zoning codes, or sign codes, including ours, real estate signs are exempted from the requirements of the code.
Is it in here that it's exempted now?
Not under, it's in the other sections of the code which aren't provided in this.
So real estate signs are exempted from this?
Correct.
I think the piece that we're, I think, maybe getting a little bleed over is we're talking about the city right-of-way. City right-of-way. So by code, no one is to be using the city property, including city right-of-ways, for personal profiteering or gain without the city's permission. So this is just merely enforcing what we have done in other areas with policy, but it's actually codifying it by putting it in here.
So just to make sure that so everything that we did for Warrior Proud, all those signs that we put around the city, they would not have been allowed?
Not correct. So if Warrior Proud came to City Hall and said that they were going to be dispensing signs throughout the city, then that would be allowed. The fire company does it all the time. The ambulance corps does it all the time. Little League Baseball does it all the time. So there's a number of agencies that routinely come to City Hall or phone in and say, hey, we're going to put 20 signs out. They're going to be in various city right-of-ways from point A to point B. And that's how we handle it. Now, if they're there beyond the time period, then we go pick them up.
From people's front yards?
We pick them up from the city right-of-ways. I'm not sure what you're saying by people's front yards.
Basically, all along Washington Street, all the way up to your front door is the city right-of-way.
That's correct. I live on Union. My city right-of-way comes almost up to my front porch. When I put my signs up, I put them back against my fence that are on my property, not on the city right-of-way. So it's not an issue. Some people have the ability to do that, others don't. So, the bottom line is it's the city's right-of-way. I don't know how else to explain it.
I find it very onerous. Go ahead.
Councilmember Ringsager.
If I could add on to that, I find no difference in regulating this than us regulating the library sign or the St. John's or we couldn't regulate the library, but or the Opera House. But this is to stop those temporary signs from popping up everywhere. They're still on city right-of-way, and we have the right as a city to regulate our right-of-way. That's how I feel about it. So if you feel certain parts of it are onerous, for instance, the map, which I could be compelled to agree with, you could possibly strike that. And maybe at the hearing, we can discuss that and move on to the second reading and adopt the measure without that portion in it if that suits you and the rest of the council. But other than that, I think the city has the right to regulate our right-of-way.
I also believe that the city is the citizens, the people who live here, and then we have the right to express our free speech. on our property, that we mow the lawns.
Any other questions or comments? Hold on, Mr. Grimm, do you have something to add?
I'd like to apologize. I misspoke with respect to exemptions. I often have to go back and remind myself to forget the Harford County sign code or Harford County code sometimes. So the Harford County code, as I recall it, that did specifically exempt real estate signs from being regulated by the sign code. You could do and put them pretty much anywhere. Our sign code speaks to real estate signs on residential properties. I'm not speaking about the right-of-way at all. I'm just saying, I want to clarify, they're not exempt from the code. So our sign code says you can have real estate signs that are similar to other signs on your property that are a certain size. So I just wanted to clarify that. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grimm. Councilman Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, we're going back and forth about this since I saw it, and I mean, some of this does seem maybe a little overzealous, but a lot of it also makes sense because, you know, we see those, a lot of big signs sitting in the city right of way for up to a year, you know, ahead of a general election. But I think, to Casey's point, the city already has the right to remove signs that are in the city right of way, like any sign, right? Am I wrong about that?
By policy.
By policy, not by law. So any sign in the city's right of way, the city cannot touch until we pass this.
Well, I think we want to codify it, is what we're trying to do, is to give it the, so that we have the legal right to do that.
So I think
I'll defer that to the city attorney.
to Casey's point, and Steve, yeah, I see your signs are always abutted against your fence, but most folks don't have that luxury, maybe within the downtown area, including your neighbors who have signs out right now that would be on the city right of way. So are we requesting that each individual homeowner come to the city and say, hey, I want to put a candidate sign in my front yard?
If it's in their front yard, no. If it's in the city right away, yes.
Well, okay, so most front yards in downtown Havre Grace, let's get over the semantics. Most front yards in downtown Havre Grace are in the city right of way.
That's correct.
Okay.
So what I think as a city, the bigger picture, and this is again something that we're working on administratively, is when you look at streets like Union Avenue, Washington Street, and to a lesser extent Market, to a greater extent Congress, because that's a wider street, where the city right away starts and ends, and who can use, profit, or take away use it so that the public cannot. So we have to decide as a city, based on what's in our ordinance already, that we cannot allow those sort of things to occur for personal gain. Somebody have personal gain using city property. I think we're dealing with this with a couple of legal cases, and we have, with city right-of-ways, city easements and so forth. So this, again, just sort of is all intertwined with the kind of that genesis of going to these next steps. If the city council wanted to have an exemption for properties for a period of time on certain right-of-ways because of just the way the city grew over the last 150 years, these encroachments occurred. That's up to the city council. But I would caution everyone that whatever we do, we need to have consistency, because not only do we have a temporary use such as a sign, we have more permanent uses such as structure. And those are the things that as we go through these lease and licensing agreements, the city attorney has put a 5-year sunset on those so that we can go back and revisit this as we build in these other pieces of these ordinances. So it's sort of complex. This is probably the simplest piece of it. But it's just, I mean, what do you do if you have an individual, I use my right-of-way, my house as a example. So 3 steps off of my front steps is the city right-of-way. So does that mean I can do whatever I want on that property and forbid others to use it? No, I mow it, I maintain the sidewalk, because that's what the city code says. But I can't technically keep people off of it. It's a city right-of-way.
So my question was, for individual homeowners that want to have a political sign in their front yard, which is protected speech,
Right.
are we going to now have residents of Havre de Grace, specifically the downtown, reporting to the city hall every time that they want to set a candidate sign out? Because according to this and how it's read, that would be the case, correct?
So-
Or it would be on the candidate, to come and say, I have, this list of signs that I just put out, at this address, that address, Market Street, Union.
So I go back to my answer. If it's on a city right-of-way, yes. If it's on your personal property, no.
Yeah, that just seems.
It's either going to have to be the candidate or the homeowner. Somebody's going to have the permission, and more importantly, the sign has to go up and down based on the criteria of what's
Sure.
in the ordinance.
And I think that
And I
that's
think
probably.
I think that's the bigger.
That's an easier thing, I think, to deal with than the reporting element. And that's kind of what I'm trying to get at, because if you already have it, if we codify it in the code,
Yeah.
that signs come down X number of days after an event, X number of days before they're allowed to go up, which is what we're doing, that makes sense, that's enforceable, but I think it's just such a burden, probably. I mean, the city hall will get inundated, and then your code enforcement guy is going to go out, well, did they report it or did they not report it? And then do they pull it if they didn't report it? I mean,
Councilman, I hear what you're saying. I think, in between second reading and adoption, I think
Yeah.
there's several amendments that can probably improve it.
yeah, I agree.
Sorry. Councilmember Zanner, if I just want to interject one thing real quick, Councilmember Zanner. And maybe I might even be able to address what you're about to say. So the genesis of this ordinance came from the administration. The administration is the law enforcement branch of this government. And often we get calls from citizens about signs in right-of-way, or this sign needs to be down, or can I put a sign up? And a lot of times we find ourselves with lacking true authority other than this policy. And I think the most important part of this ordinance, there's some things, obviously, for second reading, public hearing, adoption, you can tweak it, whatever you want. I think the most important thing from my seat, from the enforcement branch, is the timeline on this. And quite frankly, we're entering a season now. It's February. And at the end, and sometime in January, huge political signs started popping up right in our historic downtown. Big ones. And with a June primary and the November election, we're probably going to have to look at those signs until Thanksgiving. Almost an entire year. A city that's so focused on protecting its historic landscape, I'm asking council to give my administration the authority to tell folks, if you want to put a sign on city right-of-way, you can. 45 days before an election, or 45 days before your nonprofit event, or whatever it happens to be. I need that authority is what I'm asking for from council. If you don't like the reporting things, that's fine. Everyone up here has run for office, and we all know how important it is to work with our supporters to put a sign that says, hey, I support this person. No one's questioning free speech. No one's saying whose sign goes up or whatever. You can skirt your way around it if you happen to have any actual property on your own, you can stick it on. I know Mr. Gambatori has to put all the way back to his fence. That's what he owns. So if you happen to have land on your property that's not city right away, you can put it up whenever you want. But what I'm asking for is this, the city should be able to control its landscape for most of the part of the year. Except for the 45 days leading up to whatever event it happens to be. And that's what I'm asking for council is help me have some kind of codified way. So when people say, hey, look, is this allowed, is that not allowed? Or my God, we have 100 signs going up and down the street, and I mean, it looks like, you know, the strip on Las Vegas. And people can keep their signs up there forever if they wanted to. So help me protect the streetscape, at the same time respect people's rights to put up signs. I mean, if you went to Bully Rock, I think you got, 30 days to put a sign up? My HOA is kind of the same way at Grace Harbor. It's like 2 months or something like that. So what I'm saying is, if there's something in this that you want to tweak away. I'm asking, I think the most important thing from an administrative standpoint is at least the time frame. Just make it no more than 45 days prior to whatever event that happens to be. Councilmember Zinner.
Thank you. Well, I'm looking at paragraph 7, and it's saying temporary signs, including those announcing a special event or political signs, are permitted within the city right away on following conditions. So the conditions are spelled out, so I don't see how we're impeding anyone from putting in a sign. And we discussed this a lot during the sign ordinance in terms of political speech was protected, as well as what Shane looked up in terms of real estate. The other thing then, when you go down on section 7 and you look at C, it says temporary signs, including special event signs and political signs, shall not be placed in the city right away more than 45 days prior. It's not saying you can't place them in the city right away. It's saying you can't place them, at least the way I'm reading this, more than 40 days prior to the event or election. So it's still giving you the right to express yourself either through a real estate sign or a political sign or an event sign on the city right away if it's in your yard. But it's also telling you in 45 days, take it down. So, I mean, I don't have an issue with a timeline to remove signs that are, I think, some of these signs, especially the large ones, I've been talking about this for a while. I just think that it's pollution, basically, and it's why can someone not take a sign down, even if they win the primary, and put it up closer to the election? I just think that that's something that should be part of a responsibility of a candidate. The people that don't win on the primary, they take their signs down. The person that wins the primary should take their sign down, knowing that they're going to have the ability to put it back up again. That's just the way I feel about it. But I don't see that this is denying them the right to have a sign for 45 days prior to an election or 90 days for the year. I might be missing something, but
No, you have it
I'm
right.
not reading it.
Yeah, right, you're correct.
No,
I
you're
think
missing something.
Councilmember Boyer had her hand up before you did. I'll be right back to you. Councilmember Boyer?
How did 45 days come to fruition? That's a month and a half before an election that we're saying that a candidate who might not have name recognition has the ability to come within our jurisdiction and publicize their name. I mean, it makes sense for our municipal elections, but I don't think it really makes sense on a countywide or statewide basis, especially for, you know, some obscure offices that people don't really know who the candidates are or who their options are at all.
I guess that's personal choice if the streetscape is more important or the candidate's more important.
I mean, it's not something that happens every year as far as national or statewide elections. We're talking about something that happens every 4 years. Our municipal elections are every year. I get that, but
Congressional elections are every other year.
congressional, no, that's another great example of somebody who it's kind of really important to know who your options are for the candidates. And one of the key ways of doing that is through signs. That's what people read. That's what works. That's how we get to know about people, because we don't have a newspaper anymore.
Councilmember Robertson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, again, I just want to clarify that I am totally for having an enforceable policy, codifying the policy in code, and giving a timeline for, putting the signs up and the removal of signs. Item C under number 7 is what really burns me a little bit, because, I mean, you make, we all run every year. We have an event. We have signs at our event. People come to our event and take signs. I don't want to have to be responsible for reporting to the city where people are putting those signs. You know, I'm just saying it's so cumbersome on the candidate, on the volunteers, on the homeowners, and really on the city staff that's going to have to record that and then use that as part of their enforcement. Because unless that is part of the enforcement category, like the code enforcement guy is going to go out and say, well, 813 Ontario didn't report that they have, that they were putting a sign out today, so we're going to remove that sign because it's on the city right-of-way. Like, that's just a ridiculous thing to me. Now, 7 days past an election, there's a sign out there, it gets removed, makes all the sense in the world. So I don't know, man. I know it's only the first reading, but I would feel very good to go ahead and move to remove item C under number 7.
I second.
Council, I have a motion by, hold on one second. Council, I have a motion by Councilman Robertson, second by Councilman Ringsacher, to strike item C in its entirety, correct?
Correct.
Out of ordinance 1050, I'm sorry, out of ordinance 1068. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. Councilmember Robertson's amendment to ordinance 1068 to strike item C carries 6-0 in affirmative.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now I'll sleep better tonight.
Any further questions or comments, sir?
No, sir.
Council President.
Hey, with that being said, and you just struck the map, are you still going to require the person putting up the signs to notify Department of Planning at least 45 days prior to the special event? You know,
Council President, that's precisely what I was striking out.
No, that's B.
That's B.
You said C. I'm moving up to B now.
Got rid of the map.
Charge of the
You got rid of the
placement of
map.
sign. Right, yeah, giving the map to the Department of Planning. I got you.
I mean, what I heard the mayor say, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the critical part of this whole legislation is the timeline.
Yep.
And, you know, if that's true, do we need to notify Department of Planning 45 days prior to the event?
I don't know that we need to notify the Department of Planning is kind of my point. I mean, I guess in certain circumstances that might make sense, like the Waterfront Festival or something is coming up, but we would also know that, right?
Right. You're right. Some events, we know the timeline. So, if example, if we know the date of an event, then you just do the math of 45 days.
Right.
I mean, so it probably would be, I mean, if it's a city council election, you know what the date is. And so code enforcement knows if it's 45 days or not.
And most likely it's going to be on the sign anyway.
And can't we include that in our agreement that they have to sign, that they won't put signs out until 45 days?
Well, they get a copy of this code.
Right.
Yeah. So, Mr. Mayor, I move to strike B in its entirety under number 7.
Hold on, okay, hold on one second.
Thank you, Council President.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Robertson, seconded by Councilmember Boyer to strike item B out of the city, out of ordinance 1068. Questions or comments? CP?
If we do that, my question is to Shane for Department of Planning. Do you concur with that proposal, or, I mean, is there an issue from Department of Planning's perspective if we do that?
Sir, I haven't had an opportunity to really fully digest this ordinance to be able to give you an answer on that. I'd like the opportunity over the next couple of weeks to kind of digest this and talk to administration about my concerns, if there are any. My only concern that I could, from the Department of Planning's perspective, is we do get complaints about signs being up too long, and they can be obstructing to sightline views on streets. The only thing that I'm concerned about from an enforcement perspective is we can look at an aerial photo and show where, and see, okay, here's the right-of-way. But in reality, my code enforcement officer is not a surveyor. So there could be some discretion used in whether or not, or there could be some issues in determining whether something is or isn't in the right-of-way. And I think that's where we get into a little bit of a problematic area. I don't want to have my enforcement officer or myself out there arguing with a property owner over whether or not or where the right-of-way actually is. This, and let me be clear, this doesn't just extend to signs. This extends to anything. I am not a surveyor. Most people do not have survey stakes up in their property to be able to look at it and see where the right-of-way line is. So that's my only concern that I have right now, but certainly I'd like an opportunity to think about this, how it will affect our enforcement efforts.
With that said, I would say that we should defer striking it to give the Department of Planning a chance to review it over the next couple of weeks, and, we can address it again at the public hearing.
Council President, I would recommend that, we could go ahead and strike it now, and if Shane felt that it was necessary, we could always put it back.
I'm sorry, I'm not following what you don't think.
Item B, under number 7, that's what Council President was just asking your opinion on.
He was saying that if we strike it tonight, and then in the next couple of weeks, you determine that it needs to be added back in, Again, this goes back to what I heard tonight. I heard everybody's comments, and I'm not so sure providing a map or providing something in writing to the Department of Planning is, crust of this legislation, I think, is the timeline, the 45 days, and the 7 days after the election. And as long as we get individuals, whether it's a candidate or whether it's somebody holding an event coming up, as long as they comply with that timeline, that meet the crust of what you're trying to get at, to give you the authority to control the landscape of the city.
I'll just say at this time, I understand what the administration is trying to do by inserting that provision under B. And I certainly concur that there should be a time frame as to how far in advance of an election signs should be able to be put up. What I will say is that there are other instances in the sign code or codes where we have time frames established where people must contact the city in order to do this. The problem I have is the average citizen doesn't know that. So do we turn away the average citizen because they're well, I didn't know I had to be 45. The average citizen doesn't know that they need to consult a sign code to learn that they need to do something so many days in advance. So it's a challenging thing to enforce. And oftentimes, not political signs, but other signs around the city that I get requests for, maybe it's for the book sale or something like that. I'm certainly not going to turn away the book sale or somebody selling cookies or whatever event may be happening because they're 5 days, they missed it by 5 days. So it is a challenging thing to enforce, but I understand why the administration wants to do what they want to do. Again, I haven't fully had time to digest it and see how the department will enforce what is being proposed.
With that said, I would be willing to hold off on deleting B until we give the Department of Planning time to digest it. That's just my opinion.
I don't see a problem with this on first reading. I see no problem with keeping it from my perspective.
We had a second from Casey.
Call for the question.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Robertson, second by Councilmember Boyer. The motion is to strike item B from Ordinance 1068. All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed say nay.
Hey.
I apologize, Council. If you don't mind, can I get a roll call vote on this? Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
No.
Council President Glenn.
No.
Councilmember Ringstocker.
No.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
We have 3 in favor, 3 against. Motion to strike item B at this time fails for lack of majority. We're going to go back under the question for ordinance 1068. Any further questions or comments on the ordinance? First reading. Council, I'm going to do a roll call vote. Roll call vote on ordinance 1068 concerning amending chapter 151 regarding temporary signs. First reading. Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
No.
Councilmember Ringsager.
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Council President Glenn.
Yes.
By roll call vote of 5-1 in the affirmative, ordinance 1068 regarding temporary signs on first reading is adopted. Council President, when would you like to have the public hearing?
March 7th.
March 7th, preceding the council meeting. Okay. Thank you very much, council. We're going to go to item D. Ordinance concerning supporting the Decoy Museum expansion and grant application. Council President Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion to introduce for first reading the ordinance concerning supporting the Decoy Museum expansion and grant application.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by the council president, seconded by Councilmember Ringsager. This is a ordinance concerning supporting the Decoy Museum expansion grant application. This is a motion to introduce that ordinance. Questions or comments on the introduction? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion introduce an ordinance carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Council, this will be ordinance 1069, 1069. An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution, the local government article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, and sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter for the purpose of supporting the Havre de Grace Decoy Museum expansion and grant application. Council, do I have a motion to adopt on first reading?
So move.
Second.
Motion by the council president and seconded by Councilmember Martin. Questions or comments? Council President?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This ordinance supports the Decoy Museum expansion and grant application. The purpose of the expansion includes efforts to encapsulate the existing Madison Mitchell Decoy Shop to prevent deterioration of this historic structure. I'll defer to the city attorney if there's anything else she'd like to add.
Just that the grant application requires an easement that the city is going to be granting to the Maryland Historic Trust, and according to the grant application, it looks like it would be a 20-year easement, so it's not a permanent easement.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council President, any further questions?
That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Any other further questions or comments? Councilmember Robertson?
I don't want to belabor the point too much, since this is first reading and we have the opportunity to come back, but would you mind just giving a quick synopsis of what the easement would be, what that means to the city?
Okay, so currently, the Decoy Museum is on city-owned property. I believe we own the structure as well. And so if there's an easement on it, that would mean even if the Decoy Museum were to close tomorrow, we would still be bound by that easement for the term of the easement. Now, a lot of times, the Maryland Historic Trust easements are permanent, like the one up by Mount Felix, Zion Hill, that's a permanent one. This one, based on the grant application, would be 20 years. But it would bind the city to not be able to do anything with the structure. The current structure they're proposing to build is going to encapsulate, as Council President said, the existing Madison Mitchell Workshop. So the part that the city is one of the reasons the city needs to approve it. We can't just do a letter of support. We're actually encumbering city property, and that's why it's being done as an ordinance. Is that helpful?
Yes, ma'am. So essentially, with the easement from MHT, that property is bound to the intended use that they're giving the money to now the museum for, and it cannot be used for anything else in any other way for the next 20 years.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Robertson, any further questions? Councilmember Boyer.
I just want to clarify on that. So it has to be used as a museum structure during that period of time?
The purpose for which the grant was given.
The purpose, so to protect that structure that was placed there?
Correct.
And where was the original structure located? It was moved to that location. So it's not a historic property in any way, it's just a historic building?
Correct.
So where was the original one?
The-
Because I wasn't here
The
then.
original Madison Mitchell shop was behind his house, behind the funeral home. But with the historic trust funding that they're getting, it's not so much that the historic significance of the Madison Mitchell shop, it's the fact that now that they're getting historic trust money, that the property and the structure that they're going to create is now part of that 20-year easement. So if for 20
say something happened to our decoy museum.
Right.
And say, in order to protect that structure, to make sure that people still have access to it, it was sent down to Salisbury, deconstructed and sent down to Salisbury to be by the Lim Ward structure that's down there, that would not be allowed. That would be protected, right?
I can't speak to that. All I can speak to is an easement is going to be a recorded instrument in the land records. Therefore, everybody is on notice that that city property will be bound for that period of time. The city, as the owner of the property, is consenting to the imposition of that easement. What happens to the Mitchell structure, which I think that structure individually might be owned by the museum, the Mitchell portion of it, but because the city is the owner, they will not be able to get that grant unless the owner of the property consents to being imposed with that easement. So what happens to the structure in the future, I don't know. I'm just talking about the city property, proper real estate, has to consent to the easement.
The structure itself, the Mitchell building, you could really look at as sort of an artifact within the museum. That's what they're creating. So it's not about that. It's about the easement now on the structure that they're putting on that's now attached to the decoy museum that the city residents, the citizens of Havre own not only the land but also the structure. They're a tenant. So as long as they're a decoy museum, they get the right to tenancy. What this now does is if that organization stop operating, then we as a city have, unless we want to continue to operate it as a decoy museum, the city, if we want to move City Hall down there, for example, we would not be allowed to do that because the use would change under the easement.
Councilmember Boyer, any further questions?
No.
Councilmember Zinner.
I have a question. So let's say that they're not asking for a grant. Let's say, however, they can raise money themselves. So if they wanted to put up this structure, then would they come back to the city and not an easement?
That's probably a likelihood that that's how that would be structured, would be as a lease to add to the structures already on the land.
I was just looking at if there's other options, so if they
Thank you.
So if I could, Mr. Mayor, so part of this process, and thankfully President Tarquini, when they are looking for funds to do this, and he came forward and he said it's just a simple MHT grant or loan that they're gonna get. And could we sign an agreement saying that we're agreeable to what they're doing? So I think the city, whether they were building, whatever they were doing, they would come to the city and ask permission before they go to start designing the plans and so forth, which they did, that they wanted to do this expansion. So when we start reading those trust documents, and that's when we kind of noticed that this easement was going to be required. And it's based on, I think, for every $5,000, it's 1 year or something like that, and then it's with a minimum of 15. So basically, what we have to agree to as a council is, hey, we're gonna support it if you get it. We're gonna support the fact that there's gonna be a 20-year easement on it. If you don't get it and you do something else, they're still gonna have to come to Mr. Graham and get permits, and then within their lease agreement, they'd have to get a permission that they're going to expand the footprint of the building based on the lease that we have now is for a specific footprint.
I can't tell from they didn't provide any dimensions, right? I can't tell from this drawing
I don't think they've got that far, have they, Mr. Graham?
No, in their early design of their plans, what I've seen, it's basically the building is over top of the existing impervious area. There's a driveway that kind of comes around the back of the building, and the building would kind of be over that existing paved area, is what I've seen so far, if you're familiar with it. I mean, is that what you've seen, Steve?
Was there a lease for that existing paved area? If that's
The entire land down there, all the land and all the structure is all in the lease. That's what they're paying for.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'm saying that the paperwork is due on the 25th, and today's the 22nd. It seems like very, very short notice. Have they sought any other funding that doesn't include an easement?
I can't speak to that. I'm not sure. Alls I know is when we got this, I think their intention was it was just the mayor to be able to sign to support the project, which I think everyone does support the project. But then when this MHT came into play, I spoke to Mr. Tarquini and I said, this is beyond the mayor's signature. This is the mayor and city council has to approve this. And this was the very first meeting since that conversation that we could get it on. So yeah, time is of the essence, through no fault of theirs nor ours. Okay. It's just, the timing.
Any other questions, Councilmember Ringsager?
No, sir.
Council, any further questions before I call for the roll? Councilmember Boyer.
I just want to make sure that there's nobody in the audience that's here to speak on behalf of the Decoy Museum in support of this. Okay, thank you.
Okay, council, this is going to be ordinance 1069 regarding supporting the Decoy Museum expansion and grant application. This is going to be a roll call vote on first reading. Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsager.
No.
Council President Glenn.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
By roll call vote of 5-1 in the affirmative, ordinance 1069 regarding support of the Decoy Museum expansion grant application is adopted on first reading. Council President, when would you like the public hearing?
March 7th.
Okay, we're going to have a public hearing on March 7th preceding the council meeting. Thank you very much, council.
Mr. Mayor, I think I'm going to be absent March 7th.
March 7th.
Yeah, I think I have something else.
Maybe we won't have anything else on the agenda. We'll just have all public hearings on ordinances, so I'm with you.
Well, then we got to do second readings at some point, so.
Correct. Correct. Thank you. We're going to go down to item E, ordinance concerning deed of dedication of roads in Chesapeake Heights. And, bless you, sir. And we're going to go to Councilmember Ringsager, the chair of the council planning committee.
Hey, sir, I'm sorting through my agenda.
What?
Bathroom break?
Sure, yeah, I was going to actually plan one after the ordinances, but we want to do one right now? You want to do an ordinance? Or
This should be real quick.
Okay, all right. I'm with you. I'm in. Okay.
All right.
So, Councilmember Ringsager.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I make a motion to introduce an ordinance concerning deed of dedication of roadbeds in Chesapeake Heights, Section 2, for first reading.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Ringsager, second by Councilmember Robertson. This is a motion to introduce a ordinance concerning deed of dedication of roadbeds in Chesapeake Heights. Questions or comments on the introduction? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against say nay. Motion to introduce ordinance carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Council is going to be ordinance 1070. An ordinance of the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace adopted pursuant to the authority of Article 11E of the Maryland Constitution. A local government article of the Annotated Code of Maryland, Sections 33 and 34 of the Havre de Grace City Charter, for the purpose of accepting by deed of dedication certain roadbeds in the community of Chesapeake Heights, Section 2. Council, to have a motion to adopt ordinance 1070 on first reading.
Second?
Motion by Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Ringsacher. Questions or comments? Councilmember Ringsacher.
Mr. Mayor, Council, they built some houses back behind Meadowvale, and they finished the roads, and they're dedicating them to the city. That's it. Told you it'd be quick.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Ringsacher. Any other further questions or comments? Council, it's going to be a roll call vote on ordinance 1070. Councilmember Martin?
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Robertson?
Aye.
Councilmember Zinner?
Yes.
Council President Glenn?
Yes.
Councilmember Ringsacher?
Yes.
By a vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, City Ordinance 1070 concerning deed of dedication of roadbeds in Chesapeake Heights, Section 2, is adopted by council on first reading. Council President, when would you like to have the public hearing?
Let's shoot for March the 7th.
Okay, we're going to have a public hearing on March 7th preceding council meeting. We are going to move on to item 13, old business, but before we do, we've been at it for about 2 hours and 10 minutes, and we're going to call a brief recess so we can come back at it fresh for old business and new business and wrap it up with director and council comments. Council, any objections to a recess?
No, sir.
Okay, the time is now 9:10. We'll be back at 9:20. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We had a brief intermission. Just for the record, it's February 22nd, 2022, and the time is now 9:26 p.m. We are resuming the city council meeting, and we will start off with item 13, old business. Old business dealing with a resolution concerning the ratification of additional terms of settlement of the opioid legislation, and we're going to hand this off to the council president.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion to address resolution concerning ratification of additional terms of settlement of the opioid litigation.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by the council president, second by Councilmember Martin. This is a resolution concerning ratification of additional terms of settlement of the opioid legislation. This is motion, or litigation. This is a motion to introduce this resolution. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to introduce resolution carries 6-0 in affirmative. Council, this is going to be Resolution 2022-06, a resolution by the Mayor and City Council of Havre de Grace, Maryland, pursuant to Section 33 and 34 of the City Charter and the Local Government Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland to ratify additional terms of settlement of the opioid legislation. Council, I have a motion to adopt Resolution 2022-06.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by the Council President, second by Councilmember Martin. Questions or comments? Council President?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council passed Resolution 2021-24 on December 20th of 2021 to approve partial settlement of the city's claims against opioid manufacturers and distributors. As part of the partial settlement, the state of Maryland negotiated a state subdivision agreement. We, the city, had a court deadline of January 26, 2022 to approve the state subdivision agreement. The mayor executed the approval form on January 25, 2022. This action ratifies and affirms the actions of the mayor, and at this time, I'll defer to the city attorney for any further clarification.
Yes, thank you, Council President. This resolution really affirms and ratifies what has already been done. It's my legal view that the original Council Resolution 2021-24 passed in December of 2021 gave the mayor the authorization to sign off on the state settlement. But out of an abundance of caution, because it was submitted on a form to the state attorneys general, I wanted the city council to have before it the actual state subdivision agreement and the statement of agreement, and to ratify the mayor's actions. And just so you know, I was on a phone call with a Maryland Municipal Attorneys Association prior to the mayor signing the document, and I think it was 1 or 2 days before the 26th of January. And it was discussed on there how the municipalities tried to get better terms for the state settlement agreement, which will be the driver of distribution of the funds to the various municipalities. And they felt like they got the best deal they could under the circumstances, in spite of the fact that the Maryland Attorney General never brought a lawsuit and was never part of the lawsuit. But the attorneys felt that we got the best that we could get. And failure to sign off on it would have prevented the city from getting any of the proceeds, which is what Baltimore City actually elected to do. So I think this protects the city. In the exhibit, you'll see the projected funds that would be available, and there will be a grant process for some of those funds, and then as the process goes forward. And then no attorney's fees get paid out of this portion. The attorney's fees get paid out of the attorney fee portion approved by the court.
Thank you, Ms. Ishak. Councilmember Martin?
One last thing, and City Council really it made the statement that the state did not proceed at all. It was the judge's decision to include the states because of the number of municipalities that were in the lawsuit, municipalities and counties. So for the payouts process to be easier, they decided to award all the funds to the state, and then we had to go forward with this process to get the money back to the, so again, as you said, the state did not. They get to control the funds, and we have to fight to get them back.
Thank you, Councilmember Martin. Any other further questions or comments from council? Council, we're going to do a roll call vote. This will be a roll call vote on Resolution 2022-06. Councilmember Robertson.
Yes.
Councilmember Zinner.
Yes.
Councilmember Martin.
Yes.
Council President Glenn.
Yes.
Councilmember Ringstocker.
Yes.
Councilmember Boyer.
Yes.
By roll call vote of 6-0 in the affirmative, resolution concerning ratification of additional terms of settlement of the opioid litigation is approved by council, 6-0. Resolution 2022-06. Okay, we're going to move on to item 14, which is new business. And we have on the agenda, I think it's 8 special events. And we're going to start off with Mr. Gamatoria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. Before you this evening, our first event application is for the annual Easter egg hunt. It's sponsored by the Havre Grace Rec Committee. Occurs down at Concord Point. Setup is the 16th of April, beginning at 8 a.m. The event starts at noon, and 12:05 it should be completed. So this is nothing different than in years past. The area is cordoned off based on age, and the call sheet is at the very end of your packet, with normal patrol being used for the event, and DPW had some minor costs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gamatoria. Councilmember Boyd, do you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Will the Lighthouse be open that day for visitors to go up?
I would suppose. I don't know what their schedule is.
The Lighthouse will be open that day? Okay, great, thanks.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the Easter egg hunt.
I second.
Yeah.
I have a motion to approve the Easter egg hunt by Councilmember Ringstocker, and it's seconded by Councilmember Robertson. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Easter egg hunt, April 16th, 2022, from 12 o'clock, 12:05 p.m. Concord Point Park is approved, 6-0 in the affirmative. It's also Councilmember Martin's birthday. All right.
We celebrate.
Are you going to be down at the Easter egg hunt that day?
I am.
Okay, good.
Bunny rabbit?
All right,
Bunny rabbit?
we'll sing a happy birthday to you. Get everybody singing it at 11:59.
Bring your own basket.
Bring your own basket.
We could do it at noon, and by the time we're done with the song, the Easter egg hunt will
It'll be over, yeah.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gamatory.
Next event, council, is the Defenders Day Food Truck Festival. It's this year sponsored by the city of Havre Grace. It's down at Concord Point Park again. The setup is Saturday, May 7th at 10 a.m. Event is from 1 o'clock till 8 p.m. The event will end post fireworks, which will take place at dusk. Within the packet, there is the one section we have for food service that will occur with the food trucks, and also alcohol will be sold down at the event. There's 3 different maps in your packet that describes where it's at and specifically how it'll be set up. And the end of the packet has the call sheet, which is specified by both PD and DPW.
Thank you, Mr. Gamatoria. Council, do I have a motion to approve Defenders Day?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Ringstocker. Second by Councilmember Boyer. Questions or comments about the event? Councilmember Boyer?
Just want to confirm with this too, that the Lighthouse will be open that day for visitors to go up, correct?
Yes, but I don't see any
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Defenders Day Food Truck Festival, May 7, 2022, 1 o'clock to 8 o'clock at Concord Point Park. This event is approved by council, 6-0 in the affirmative. Mr. Gamatoria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, the next event is the Relay for Life of Harford County. It'll be held down at the Concord Point Park. It's a 5K and 10K walk. Setup is Friday the 24th, 5 to 8 p.m. Event starts at noon on Saturday the 25th, and then ends at midnight. There is no rain date for this event. There's a site map within the packet next to the last page. Shows the route, similar to what we had in years past. Also, road closures will be the same as years past. And then the last page is your special events worksheet for costs for both DPW and PD.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gamatoria. Council, I have a motion to approve the Relay for Life.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by the Council President, second by Councilmember Martin. Questions or comments? Councilmember Boyer?
Just want to make sure. It's going to be open, right? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Relay for Life, June 25th, 2022, carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Mr. Gamatoria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next event is the Spirit of America Festival, which is sponsored. The sponsorship says the Havity Grace Alliance. That'll soon be the city of Havity Grace. Bambi Johnson will be the point of contact for that event. It's a festival. It's in the downtown. There's a site map attached as well, similar to what we had last year. Seemed to be very popular first-time event last year. The setup is Saturday, July 2nd, about 9 a.m. Vendors will start coming in at 10. The event is from noon until 5 on Saturday the 2nd, and the breakdown will occur about 6:30. In your packet, there, if you go to the third page page 10 of 11, it does indicate food service will occur down there, as well as a beer garden. Further in your packet, there's two maps. Ms. Johnson did a nice job depicting the location and the setup for the event, and the last page is the call sheet.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gamatoria. Council, I have a motion to approve Spirit of America Festival for July 2nd.
So moved.
Motion by Councilmember Martin and seconded by Councilmember Zinner. Questions or comments on the event? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Spirit of America Festival for July 2nd, 2022, from 12 to 5 p.m. at downtown Havre Grace is approved 6-0 in the affirmative. Mr. Gamatoria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, the next event is the Waterfront Festival, again, sponsored by the Havity Grace Alliance, which will likely be the city of Havity Grace. Ms. Johnson will be the site contact. It's a festival down at Concord Point Park. The setup is 2 to 5 on Friday, the 9th of September. The event is from 5 to 11. And then on Saturday, the 10th of September, from 1 to 7. The event will also take place in part up at the Moore Family Homestead. There will be food and alcohol down at the Concord Point location. There's a site map, 2 pages that you have included. She also did a nice job with within the packet, giving the dates and times of the event as different events are occurring during the course of the day. And at the end of your packet is the call sheet.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gamatoria. Do I have a motion to approve the Waterfront Festival for December 9th?
So move.
Second.
Motion by Councilmember Zinner, second by Councilmember Ringsager. Questions or comments? Councilmember Ringsager.
Will the Lighthouse be open?
Open for the 1 hour. We have 1 hour, but the setup is great.
Here we go.
Why is it only open for an hour?
We're open from 10 to 1 hour.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Waterfront Festival for September 9th through 10th, 2022 is approved by council. Mr. Gambatoria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council. We have the second annual Susquehanna Wine and Seafood Festival. This is the sponsoring organization is the Havre Grace Independence Day Commission. The on-site contact person will be Beth Leverick. This will occur down at Concord Point Park. The setup is on September the 22nd and the 23rd. And if you see in the attachment, I think detailed in the event application is sort of how the setup's going to work. It's on the first page in. The event starts on the 24th, September 24th at 11 a.m. It breaks down at 7 p.m., or actually ends at 7 p.m. The breakdown is at 4 p.m. There is a rain date on the next day, which will be Saturday or Sunday, should there be inclement weather. Second page kind of goes into the detail of the setup. There is going to be fencing brought in, portable fencing. There is alcohol on site and food. There's a site map. The setup, if you remember, it's going to be similar to what it was last year. There is a call sheet at the very end that depicts the cost for both PD and DPW.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gambatoria. Council, to have a motion to approve the second annual Susquehanna Wine and Seafood Festival.
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Councilmember Robertson, seconded by Councilmember Boyer. Questions or comments? Councilmember Robertson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. After hearing from the wonderful volunteers at the Lighthouse and the executive director, I think it would be good if we could figure out a way to make the Lighthouse accessible. And, you know, I understand as a resident of the city that there are going to be times that you don't have full use of a park because of particular events. But in this specific circumstance, the entire area is cordoned off and there's an admission fee charged. And with the few days that the Lighthouse is accessible by folks, I don't know if we could amend this since it's someone else, or if we could suggest that maybe we go back to the organizers and see if there's a way that they can allow folks to flow into the Lighthouse grounds.
Well, maybe one way you could do is you could approve it, where there's a couple of things. One, you can just table it and send it back to the promoter and let her come up with a map, where the council could probably approve the event with the caveat that the Lighthouse remains accessible or something like that.
Sure.
I mean, and then just let the administration and promoter work it out. I mean,
yeah,
that
would be my recommendation. Do I need to make a motion for that? That it's approved under condition?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that you move that if this event passes, that it passes with the caveat that the Lighthouse remains open to the public.
Then I move that if this event passes, that the Lighthouse remains accessible to the public.
Second.
Okay, council, I have a motion by Councilmember Robertson, seconded by Councilmember Zinner. This motion is an amendment to the event application that, should this event pass, that the Lighthouse remains open to the public. Questions or comments on the amendment?
I just want to let you all know that Beth would have been here if she could. Beth Burchett would have been here if she could, but her father's burial is tomorrow. So that is why she's not here tonight. I did text back and forth with her with the question about accessibility, and an idea proposed was that if people or individuals go to the keeper's house and would like to have a tour, then somebody from the keeper's house could escort them to the lighthouse, and they could have a tour of the lighthouse that way. And then that's one way that it could happen. She would really like to see the lighthouse open during the event because she thinks it's a great opportunity for us to show what's really special about Havre Grace. And there's a large group of people there who would not necessarily have the opportunity or even know about the Lighthouse in a normal sense. And last year it was closed, which prohibited all of the attendees from being able to go. So being able to have it open is great, and I agree with having a mechanism to do it, and just suggesting one way is by people going to the keeper's house and then being escorted over through, so it's a direct line to the Lighthouse.
That's good to know. That definitely would come in handy working it out with the promoter. So we're voting on Councilmember Robertson's amendment, that if the amendment is a rider on this approval, that if it passes, that Lighthouse stays open, and that the administration will work that out to make sure that the Lighthouse stays open to the public. Any other further questions on that amendment? Yes.
I think so. Steve, the regatta, do you know when we're going to get the plan for that? Because maybe what they do would suit for the Wine and Seafood Festival, because they use a big tent. And they have that, I don't know if it's set up the same way as the times that I go on with the silent auction and the large tent.
The Hartford Hospice Regatta, yeah, so they are very different on how they're set up, because the Hospice Regatta just is sections off the north side of Concord Point, whereas this event sections off, it's almost like a cattle chute that goes all the way up Lafayette to about Young Street, and then it encompasses sort of the perimeter to the south along the promenade all the way to the north to Alliance Street. So there's no, the difference between the two is the Hospice Regatta kind of stops at the Lighthouse.
Okay. I was just wondering if there's other plans that have been submitted in the past that are large events that we could give to Beth to take a look at as well.
I think this is this one and the Defenders Day. Now, Defenders Day is a little different because it's not a gated event. The only area that's gated is the beer garden. This is a ticketed event that you have to pay for to get in.
Advance.
Similar to the Hospice Regatta, but that's on a little bit smaller scale.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, for the amendment, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The amendment to keep the Lighthouse open to the public during the second annual Susquehanna Wine and Seafood Festival carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Back to the event. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Second annual Susquehanna Wine and Seafood Festival for December 24, 2022 carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Item number 7, Mr. Gamatoria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, the next event is the Havre Grace Out of the Darkness Walk. It's sponsored by the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention in Maryland chapter. This event will be a 5 and 10K walk. It's at Tidings Park. Setup is on October the 1st at 6 a.m. The event starts the same day at 8 a.m., ends at noon, and breaks down at 1 p.m. Within the packet, you'll notice that there's the map of how, there's 2 maps. The first one is where sort of the base camp set up for the event, and then the second map shows you the where the walk and the 5K run will take place. It's a little bit different map, but remember these folks, they're sidewalk walkers. They're not on the street. And then the last page is the
Not streetwalkers.
costing sheet for both DPW and PD.
Thank you, Mr. Gamatoria. Council, I have a motion to approve the Havre Grace Out of the Darkness Walk for October 1st.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Martin, second by Councilman Robertson. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Havre Grace Out of the Darkness Walk for October 1st, 2022 from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. at Tidings Memorial Park carries 6-0 in the affirmative. Item number 8, Mr. Gamatoria.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. The final event for this evening is the annual Halloween costume contest. which is sponsored by the Havre Grace Rec Committee. The on-site person will be Jim Nemeth. This is a costume contest that occurs down at Pennington Avenue between Lodge Lane and Washington Street. So as you recall, last year was the first year they kind of scaled the event down to a little bit smaller area. Seemed to work fine. They're coming back with the same setup. Setup is on October the 30th, 4:30. The event begins the same day at 5 p.m., ends at 8:30, and breakdown is at 9:30. Within the packet is the site setup location map, which is just a macro view of that little area of Pennington, and then the call sheet for PD and DPW. And Mr. Mayor, that's the conclusion of events.
Thank you, Mr. Gambatoria. Council, have a motion to approve the annual Halloween.
So moved.
Council President, made a motion, seconded by Councilman Robertson. Questions or comments? Council President.
Chief, I talked to Lewis, and he's going to try to get on your calendar. I guess his concern is they have a pretty good turnout for that event, and because of the trick-or-treating, they saw a lot of kids running back and forth across Washington Street. And so you might want to address the possibility of closing Washington Street during that time frame for that event. And in addition, they because he gets such a great turnout, I told him, I said it may not be bad to have the ambulance corps there too. So he's trying to contact the ambulance corps to have them there. But he said that what he experienced, with the big turnout, which is it's a great turnout every year. Have the kids run back and forth, because
You want to close the street down?
Yeah. So well, he said he wanted to just touch base with the chief, and then he might make that recommendation.
I'll talk with Mr. Pillen.
Right.
Not a problem.
Any further questions or comments? Councilman Robertson?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council President, that was exactly what I was going to suggest because, moving it down there invited more people into those sides of the city. Typically, it's just that section of Washington. And what I noticed was, the sidewalks got incredibly crowded walking to and from all the restaurants and then back to the parade. Or it wasn't really a parade, but, for the judging and all that stuff. So I would actually make the recommendation that we close it down like we would a First Friday from Washington and Congress to St. John and Market, and then to St. John and Union. And that way you give kids the opportunity to not get hit by a car because it was incredibly dark. Cars are everywhere. More people were walking in the streets because the sidewalks were so crowded. And I just think, again, it's a safety concern and we want the downtown to be inviting. And our trolley should be up and running by then. So I think, that might help with the flow of parking and everything. So I make the recommendation, or I make the motion that we approve. Upon approval of this event, we include the closure of Washington at Congress, St. John at Market, and St. John at Union.
I second that.
Well, with those side streets as well.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Robertson, seconded by the Council President. Questions or comments? Mr. Gambatoria.
Yeah, so that being said, and I agree, I think they tightened it up too much. Would it be okay with council if we just tabled this one and then came back, because we'd have to do some work with DPW, restrike some maps, and really, it's really changing the whole scope of the event. If
That makes sense,
if
Mr.
council
Mayor.
wouldn't
I
mind.
withdraw my motion.
Well, you don't have to withdraw while we're under the question of your amendment.
Can I make a motion to table?
You sure?
I make a motion to table.
Second.
Councilmember Martin, can you make the motion to table?
Oh, there you go.
I'll make
I
the
think because
motion
you're
to
under a
table.
question, I mean, I don't know if you
There's
can
any
add to
question
your.
for my motion, yeah.
Okay, so you can make the motion to
make the
table.
motion that we
and
table
seconded
it.
by Councilmember Robertson to table this, and we'll come back to this event.
We really got some use out of Robert's Rules of Order this evening.
Okay, motion by Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Robertson to table this, to table the annual Halloween costume contest for October 30th Since it's a table motion, there's no debate. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Okay, we have tabled this event. For the Halloween event's been tabled. Thank you very much, council. We're going to go to item 15. Director's report. Mr. Gamatori.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two quick things. One, with all the legislation that came through this evening, I'd like to thank council for their consideration, and more so to the city attorney for the amount of legislative work she and Ms. Brinkman have been going back and forth with the last 2 weeks. It's not an easy task to get that amount of legislation on an agenda, and we have a great team that everyone works hand in hand to get it done, so I appreciate that. The next big announcement from the administration is that very soon, on March the 7th, we'll be welcoming Ms. Bambi Johnson to the administration as the Chief of Parks, Events, and Recreation. And Ms. Johnson's focus will be on special event planning, supervision and execution, oversight of the Civic Center, old gym and auditorium, and then managing park utilization and recreational resources, which include oversight, use, inventory, and aesthetic maintenance of the city's parks and trails. So as the city has grown over the last 8 or 10 years, specifically during Mayor Martin's administration with events, and the quality of the events are one that have improved year over year, and we want them to continue to go to that next level and maintain that level of quality. We felt it was necessary to bring Ms. Johnson in as the Chief of Parks, Events, and Recreation. She is a contracted employee that will work at the mayor's pleasure. So we welcome her on the 7th. She'll be housed here at City Hall, and we'll be very excited to support her in her endeavors. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gamatori. Good evening, Mr. Grimm, Director of Planning.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, citizens. I don't have much tonight. I just wanted to let you know that we do have a Board of Appeals meeting on March 17th. Unfortunately, if you're a big fan of St. Patrick's Day, we messed that one up. So hopefully our board members aren't missing out on a Guinness pint or two. But we do have a Board of Appeals meeting on March 17th for the subdivision of a lot in Bully Rock that needs variances. So if you're in Bully Rock and you would like to participate, you certainly can come out to that meeting. And that's all I have. There's lots of stuff swirling. I should say there's one or two things that are swirling that are interesting, exciting things I can't share with council just yet, that hopefully I'll be working with Ms. Johnson on soon as well. That'll be coming to town. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Grimm. Appreciate it. Good evening, Mrs. Johnson, Director of Economic Development. How goes it?
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and citizens. I did have a list of 20 ideas and projects that would really raise the tax base and save us with the Fund 9 plan. But due to the hour, George has warned me to keep my comments under 1 minute. So I'll do that next time. The conversation tonight about historic preservation was great because it actually really did lead into my first and major comment, and it is the tool design charrettes. We have had great feedback from the citizens and the merchants, not just about the design of the downtown, but the attention that we are paying to the buildings, as well as to the historical nature of our city. We have also, within the last 2 weeks, really 2 to 3 weeks, since this has really became public knowledge, the request for facade and tenant fit-out grants has risen. We received a grant in December in the amount of $50,000 for the program. We had $20,000 remaining in the budget from the last budget year. We have applications at this moment which will exceed the $70,000 that we have, and there is extra attention being paid to these charrettes and to the design and of our buildings, and also signage, which is something Shane and I will talk about. Let me see. The Current and future annexations on Route 40 is something, again, I work with in the planning department, but we have opportunities in the future for not only shaping our downtown, but shaping or reshaping the Route 40 corridor. This is something that is just near and dear to my heart. I'm glad we have an opportunity to be in this from the ground level. As our Director of Administration always tells us, we've had properties along the Route 40 corridor. You think you're in the city of Havre Grace. Technically, you are in the city of Havre Grace, but the property may not be located within the city of Havre Grace. So as these properties annex in, not all of them, some of them are residential, but it gives us an opportunity through our planning and zoning code to really shape or at least give an idea of what we would like to see on those properties. And one example of that is the Harbor Shops shopping center was recently purchased by developers out of Delaware, and the dirt pile or the parcel next to what would be APG Credit Union is going to be developed. So we know what the site plan looks like, but we don't know the type of businesses that we hope to attract. But we know it's going to be 41,000 square feet of retail space, so that gives us a great opportunity to go after the type of businesses that we would like to see, and hopefully we'll just have a different level of interest coming into the city. That will also reshape how the Route 40 corridor looks. Other than that, I'll save my other 25 ideas, but just a reminder, the Mardi Gras parade is Tuesday, March 1st, starting at 6:30 p.m. We are accepting applications in the Havre Grace Visitor Centers for First Fridays setups. That's going very well. And we are also partnering with Visit Hartford. I think this is a great idea to have a unified county calendar of events to avoid duplicating major events on the same dates in other areas of the county. Who would have thunk it? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Johnson, for the update. Appreciate it. Good evening, Mr. Horty, Director of Finance.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council, citizens. The current financial condition, you weren't even close. The current financial condition of the city is as follows. The general fund is sitting at just over $6.5 million, and it's about 1.1 ahead of schedule. To the positive, we started the year about 1.3 over where we thought we would. Salaries due to vacancies and the like has saved the city of almost $650,000 in payroll and benefits. And the real property taxes are running just under $150,000 ahead of schedule. On the negative side, grant and transfers to cover some of the projects, the capital projects are running about $700,000 below where we thought we'd be at this time, but again, I think that's mostly timing of the projects. And income tax receipts have now grown to almost $325,000 below budget. The good news is this is February and most people haven't filled out their tax returns yet, so that's still a very preliminary number, and I do expect that to rebound. The Water and Sewer Fund, the fund balance is sitting at $1.7 million, which is a $2.4 million increase for the year. As you saw from the Water Sewer, we started the year with a deficit, and we are clearly out of that right now. The operating profit is just over $1.75 million. To that, we have added almost $2.9 million in capital fees and connection charges. And we have used the money, and we also have bond proceeds of almost $2.3 million in bond proceeds already year to date. And we have spent just under $4.5 million in capital projects and debt service, which accounts for the fund balance increase. The Marina Fund is sitting at $950,000. It's a $6,000 decrease for the year, so it's basically at break even. The operating profit was $195,000, and our capital spending out of that is right now has been just over $200,000, making up the $6,000 decline. So things are really running well and solidly, and fill out your income taxes, and we'll get that back online too. So that's my financial report for this evening, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeHory. We appreciate it. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Woody, Director of Public Works.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just a couple things tonight. Lafayette Street Sewer Rehabilitation Project, we released that for the notice to proceed to the contractor. So that's going to be just a relining of the sewer from, I believe, we're taking it from Adams Street all the way down to to where the main pump station is. Erie Street, we gave a notice of award to that contractor. I believe there's going to be a budget amendment that will come through to assign the funds to that project. And then we have an RFP for the CCTV, the camera at, from Washington Street all the way down to St. John's as part of the downtown revitalization, determine what the sewer looks like and the path forward as far as whether or not that has to be, the sewer's in such condition that has to be removed or can simply be relined, and then we can just replace the service connections. And then finally, the last thing, we are finishing up in March. We're going to go ahead. We kind of held off because of the colder weather, but we are going to finally rehab the main force main from the main pump station. That will be replacing the valves, as well as the air release valves for that project. We'll be moving ahead with the contractor in March to get that project completed. Much to everyone's relief, we did do the cammering of the, not cammering, but we put a ball in through, and it's very interesting, but it was able to look at the condition of the pipe. We talked about this earlier as far as the thickness of the pipe, as well as if there was locations, sulfuric acid, and pockets like that that might lead to the pipe degrading. And it turned out to be a really a good test. Glad we did it, but it turned out that the pipe's in pretty good shape. So we're just talking about fixing the valves that need to be. And we are going to have to do with that come to some special conditions because the valves are not the best of shape, and in removing and reconditioning the valves, we have to make sure that we don't have any blowouts with sewage or things like that. So it's going to be kind of a all hands on deck type move. That's sort of why we waited to March in better weather too, because we're going to have the DPW crews there ready in case something goes amiss. But, other than that, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Woody. We appreciate it. Thank you. Good evening, Chief Walter.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ms. Johnson said it great. We do have the Mardi Gras Parade on March the 1st. The only reason why I want to mention it again is because it is dark, and the Mardi Gras, everybody has the crews have all of their vehicles all lit up and that type of thing. But it still has a tendency to be a little bit dark on Bourbon Street. I was trying to get into the Mardi Gras spirit of Bourbon Street. And again, they turn on Washington Street, but it can be a little dark in those areas, and there are kids, and the beads are flying and all that other kind of stuff. So I'm just asking the public to please pay attention if you are driving, and listen to police officer as they're doing any traffic direction and control. The other thing is on April the 30th is the National Drug Take Back. That Saturday. It's from 10 to 2. And I'll just remind people as we get a little bit closer to it, that's a Saturday. Finally, the other thing that I'd like to do, I'm asking, I know Councilmember Martin is going to be making a motion to support some legislation. And I'm asking the council to also take a favorable position on those pieces of legislation to include the amendments. I have a particular interest in 2 of those, but I think all 3 are very, very good, and I would like to support all of them. The first piece of legislation is House Bill 1184, and that deals with the Police Accountability Board and allowing municipalities to form their own police accountability boards. So that's very, very important to us. As the law currently stands, as of July 1, the county will be in charge of the accountability boards, but we would also like the municipalities to be in charge of their own accountability boards. The second piece of legislation is House Bill 1207, and that deals with the body-worn cameras, and we definitely would like the state to assume the responsibility for the cost for the body-worn cameras. So with that, that would be it, and I'll let Councilmember Martin also make any comments that he might have to say about it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Chief. Appreciate it. Thank you. We're going to go on to item 16, business from the mayor's office. Just a couple things real quick. I'm not going to, because of the hour, and I'm not going to get into a whole lot of detail on things, but if you drive around Havre de Grace, it's unmistakable. You're going to see heavy equipment anywhere you go. There's a lot of things going on in our great city, construction projects, development, fixing a lot of things, doing a lot of housekeeping chores. We just completed the Commerce Street and Francis Street sewer line construction. We got new forced sewer mains at Franklin's. We got new forced mains at St. John's, Tiding Park, Industrial Park. You've been driving around Havre de Grace along Water Street. You can't help but notice the Living Shoreline project from Water Street all the way to David Craig Park, which I talked about at the last meeting, is a very monumental project. We'll be finalizing the dredging at the Yacht Basin this week. I know a lot of folks in the last couple weeks have gone down and checked out the dredging. It's come along pretty quickly. Blenheim Run development on Route 40 is underway. There's some infill construction on vacant lots on Girard Street, North and South Stokes. New home construction remains pretty robust at Bully Rock, and we'll see soon development start around Greenway Farms, a portion of the green property behind Scenic Manor. And significant existing home expansion rehabilitation projects are occurring throughout the city. I'll tell you what, it's a great time to be in Havre de Grace. Things are going really well. And to tie into that, we had the final charrettes meeting that took place last week with Tool Design. Again, we had a lot of citizen input that tuned in on the virtual meetings, and there was a lot of input. Tool Design is a national company. They're headquartered in, I believe, Silver Spring. I was going to say Bethesda, Silver Spring, elsewhere in Maryland. Beltway. They're located in a DC Beltway. How's that? They're located in Silver Spring, Maryland, but they have offices throughout the United States, and they've done work throughout this country and other countries. And I had the pleasure of meeting the owner. Her name is Miss Jennifer Toole. She came in my office last week with her senior leadership. And one of the things I wanted to know when I talked to this organization that's been all around the country and dealt with many different towns, municipalities, different sizes, I said to her, tell me something. What does Havre de Grace have that you feel no one else has? Like, is it, I wanted to draw something out of the owner of this company. Is it the history? Is it the historic landscapes? Is it the waterfront? And without even flinching, they said, Mayor, it's your citizens. We've never seen citizens so engaged and involved before in a project. And I wanted everyone to know that that made me feel very proud that the experience that this national company has dealing with municipalities and communities right away noticed how different we are. I mean, that's what we say all the time. Havre de Grace is different. And I've always said, I'm going to reinforce this, that whatever happens downtown with the revitalization, it's going to be done collaboratively with a lot of input from citizens and stakeholders. And so we encourage you to go onto the city's website and check out the recorded meetings that took place last Thursday when Tool Design gave a presentation of their concept. Remember, it's a concept, but this is what we also are asking this company to deliver as well. When you look at it, I want everybody to keep, an open mind. I think, in general, this is some really cutting-edge stuff that they present to us. Some things right away, you think, yep, that's exactly what we need downtown. Some things you look at and you're like, never thought about that. Explain that to me. And when they explain it to you, it makes a lot of sense. And that's one thing that I really liked about this company is every time a question would pop up in your head and they give you the rationale behind it, you could really tell that the rationale, it just wasn't just pulling ideas out of a tissue box. The rationale is from tried and true methods and watching how successful cities succeed and how cities truly can renovate themselves and revitalize themselves. It's almost to the point, and I used this phrase last week, maybe it's more of a restoration than a revitalization. Bringing Havre de Grace back to the original intent of its colonial roots. I mean, everyone knows that our streets were laid out in the 1700s. And even though they were laid out by Americans, you know, all Americans back then used European influence when they laid out their cities and their designs. And I think a lot of what Tool Design is proposing is to recreate those days of social discourse among friends and neighbors and commerce, where pedestrians can intermingle with the flow of the street. You know, it's really cool. It's an interesting concept. I encourage people to go on the city website and check it out. Like I say, keep an open mind. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really showcase what is best about our city. And like I said, it's when you really think about it, we are a colonial city in our design and architecture, going way back to the 1700s. And through the last 200 years, you know, not having any zoning laws until 1982. I mean, for the last 200 years, it's just put something up, you know, just put something up. And what Tool Design came, how they married that all together, what we have and where we want to go, I think a lot of people will like it. So again, this is going to be a great project. We're looking forward to it. And I'll tell you what, I got a lot of stuff here on my list, but I'm going to save that for another meeting. You can all wait. I want to thank council for their due diligence this evening. We had a lot of legislative matters on the agenda. And so, again, this is one of the longer meetings tonight, but it's important. Got a lot of stuff done. And it's that time of year. And pretty soon we'll be starting, you know, budget issues. And I'll be giving you guys the budget in a month. So, anyway, with that said, thank you very much, everybody. Stay safe, Havre Grace. We'll see you at the Mardi Gras Parade on Tuesday, March 1st. And with that, we're going to hand it off to Councilmember Robertson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members, city staff, ladies and gentlemen here and at home. Two quick things. Number one, got to attend the Skipjack Martha Lewis cocktail reception last Thursday with my good friend, Councilmember Zinner. They were up at the Decoy Museum. Just discussing where they are with the project, and you know, it sounds like they're pretty close to being complete, and they're really looking forward to bringing it back up to Havre Grace from Cambridge. I think their long-term goal is to leave it in Havre Grace in the water, you know, during the warmer months, and then take it back down to Cambridge to dry dock and work on it in the off months. So they've been able to get some grant funding, and of course they're always looking for supporters and everything. But Mr. Mayor, I believe that the administration will probably be getting hit up from them pretty soon to do a presentation here, you know, to give everybody an update. Also, just want to put out that the Youth Commission will meet virtually.
In case you didn't get it the first time.
It's interesting to hear what I sound like on your phone. So Youth Commission will be meeting on Thursday, Thursday the 24th at 7 p.m. virtually. So just tune into the YouTube as demonstrated by Director Tim Whitty if you're interested to see what's going on with that. We just got a little bit of a business to attend to there, so it's going to be one of those kind of meetings. Mr. Mayor, I think that's it.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Robertson. Good evening, Councilmember Martin.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Council President, Council staff, and all of everybody at home. I want to start. Yeah, thank you. I want to start today off on a sad note. I want to give condolences to David and Terry Glenn on the loss of Terry, her mom, and also Jeff Thompson, who lost his dad. So it's been a trying time for some of the families, and Havre Grace is a family. I want to thank April for all her hard work on the opioid settlement. It was a lot of work, a lot of time, and it is going to benefit the citizens of both Harford County, but mainly we're going to have a nice benefit with some grants for the city of Havre Grace. Now to the chief's favorite things. I'm going to make a motion for a favorable position by the council on House Bill 1184, Police Accountability Boards, Administrative Charging Committees, and Municipal Corporation. The change that we are looking for, and we want to support, and would ask your support for, is it would enable municipal governments, if they choose, to establish police accountability boards and administrative charging committees to handle matters of police misconduct filed by members of the public. What this does is currently it would be Hartford County Sheriff's Department. This gives the authority back to the chief to have the disciplinary action and responsibility for our citizens, because they're going to come to her and ask why not or why we did something, and I would like to see us be able to say, yes, she was in charge of this, and not the Hartford County Sheriff's Department. So I make a motion at this time that we support House Bill 1184, Police Accountability Boards.
Second.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Martin, seconded by Councilmember Ringsacher. Questions or comments? Councilmember Robertson?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, I did not get an opportunity to read up on the state legislation. I didn't realize that it was in the agenda under comments until last night, so I'm going to abstain from these votes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
It's 222, 1022. So we're excited.
Any further questions? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The Havre City Council votes 5-0 in favor of House Bill 1184. Councilmember Martin.
Mayor, I'd like to continue with House Bill 1187. It's Transportation Highway User Revenue. This is the bill that was submitted by MML to the Senate and the House, and they have moved forward with it. There's some other bills out there. This is the most important one to us in that it does away with the sunset of the reduction. So in fiscal year 25, if the current HUR allocation rate is reduced to 4%, the city anticipates receiving $129,500 in HUR allocations. However, if the sunset's removed in fiscal year 25, the city anticipates receiving $842,000. So you can see that by having the sunset removed from this, the city, and again, even for the chief of police, better highways and users would be important. So I make a motion that we support House Bill 1187.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Martin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Zinner. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Havre City Council supports House Bill 1187 and Senate Bill 726. 5-0 in the affirmative.
And finally, House Bill 1207, Public Safety and Body-Worn Cameras, Cost and Expenses. This is important to us in that in fiscal year, so I'll make a motion that we support House Bill 1207, Public Safety Body-Worn Cameras. In fiscal year 23, the city anticipates we'll spend $57,700 associated with body-worn cameras. This would return that cost back to the state of Maryland to save our budget, and it's important for us to be able to use our money for other things.
Council, I have a motion by Councilmember Martin. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Ringsacher. Questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Havre City Council votes in favor of support of House Bill 1207.
Mr. Mayor, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Martin. We're going to go to comments from Councilmember Ringsacher.
Mr. Mayor, Council, I'll be short. Had the Wage and Benefits Commission meeting on the 16th. We did not have a quorum, but we came up with some ideas to move forward with our report to the council in April. Our next meeting will be March 16th. So I hope the people that need to come will be there. Looking forward to the Mardi Gras parade. And I did see online that our own Councilman Robertson, his son Colt, came up with ideas on how to fix the fence issue. So we're looking forward to hearing about that. And when it comes to geopolitics, I'd like to say that people should be more concerned with what's going on in Canada than what's going on in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Ringsager. Councilmember Boyer, good evening.
Thank you, Mayor. In the, looking at the time, I'm going to cut my comment short. I want to thank you all for attending and paying attention to what's going on and encourage you to voice your concerns, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you very much, Councilmember Boyer. Good evening, Councilmember Zinner.
Good evening, Mr. Sorry. Mr. Mayor, City Council, and citizens, Mr. Martin. Anyway, I just want to also mention that I was at the meeting with Councilmember Robertson with the Chesapeake Historic Conservancy, and the members of their board all attended that meeting, and I thought they gave a very professional presentation and had some very good representation from the individuals that are actually working on the Martha Lewis and the progress that they made. So I'm looking forward to future meetings, and they plan to hold a fundraiser in May. So hopefully with the addition of grants and their fundraisers, they can be more self-supporting than they had been in the past. I want to thank Council for approving the resolution for the stormwater management for Greenway Farms, as well as the heritage properties. I want to remind everybody that the Independence Day Commission is meeting on Monday, and Taryn Martin had sent out kind of a call to action with some of our other volunteers that are not members of the commission and invited them to the commission meeting. The public is always invited, but generally it's just the commission members who are there. So we got a great response from that, so I'm looking forward to Monday evening's meeting at 6 o'clock in the police conference room to see several more people who will hopefully take more volunteer roles and help us with the carnival and other activities to have a very successful year of fundraising and a very successful Independence Day parade. And also, I think Jewel Design did a great job. I attended every charrette except the one on Thursday because of the conflict with the Martha Lewis presentation, but I was able to go to the Opera House and visit with the design team and see their drawings, so I had an idea of what they were going to present Thursday night, because I really didn't want to miss that, and then I look forward to the recording as well. And that's all for me tonight.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Zinner. Appreciate the comments. And finally, we're going to go to Council President Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to begin my comments with some Warrior Proud moments. I wish all the Warrior athletes all the best as the Winter State playoffs are fast approaching. In fact, the mayor's son Will tonight competed in the state championships for indoor track, and as a freshman, he finished in the top 10 in the 500. So awesome performance, and congratulations to Will. I also want to congratulate Liz Nemeth, a former graduate of Havre High School who was selected as one of the finalists for Teacher of the Year this year. And I watched Liz grow up. She came back home to teach our kids. She does an outstanding job. And Liz is the daughter of Jim and Carol Nemeth, who've been outstanding volunteers for the city of Havre Grace for a long, long time. So she is without a doubt my top choice. I want to give a shout out to Laura Hahn, an 8th grade teacher at the Havre Grace Middle School, and her volunteer club, because they won the 4th annual Freedom to Help Challenge, which is awarded by the Freedom Federal Credit Union. And they won $1,000, and they donated that $1,000 to our cat club. So I think that's a great, awesome thing that they did, and the cat club is going to benefit. And last but certainly not least, I want to thank everyone for all the cards, the flowers, the emails, the text messages on the recent loss of my mother-in-law, Mabel Cully. Special thanks to Fred and Tara Zellman, Pastor Mike Caldwell, and Coakley's, who helped make the entire process seamless for our entire family. So thanks again, and Mr. Mayor, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Council President. We're going to go to item 18, adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by the Council President, seconded by Councilmember Ringsager. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion to adjourn carries 6-0 in the affirmative. The time is now 10:31. I now call this meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Be safe, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.